What a scheming snake. Did she really think things would play out like his past life? In his previous life, Ethan had rushed in without a second thought for Chloe. He had beaten Tyler, the varsity quarterback, into the ground. But Tyler turned around and told everyone Ethan was just Chloe's pathetic backup plan. Even worse, Chloe actually teamed up with Tyler and ratted Ethan out hard in front of the teacher. Because of that, Ethan not only got suspended, but also missed the SAT and the turning point that could have changed his college applications. The funniest part was, after high school graduation, Chloe actually ended up with Tyler. They even got married. But now Ethan had been reborn. There was no way he would wreck his school record and future for Chloe again. At that moment, inside the guidance counselor's office, Ethan listened to their excuses and found it hilarious. In his last life, he had tried his best to defend himself, but none of it worked. At first, Ethan could not understand why the teacher refused to believe him. Later, he finally realized this so-called questioning had been a formality from the very beginning. Tyler was the dean's son, and Mr. Davis obviously knew that. No matter how much Ethan explained, nothing would happen to Tyler. Besides, Chloe had never been on Ethan's side in the first place. Sure enough, after hearing Chloe's answer, Mr. Davis nodded right away and said, "I understand. You two can head back to class." After they left, Mr. Davis looked at Ethan with a tired expression. "Ethan, what am I supposed to say to you? Your GPA isn't even bad. How could you mess up at such a critical point in senior year? Even if you like Chloe, you could have waited until after prom to make a move on her. Hitting someone like that is wrong, understand? The punishment has already been decided. You'll write a 1,500-word apology letter, and the incident will be recorded and announced school-wide. The SAT is a little over 100 days away. Don't let something like this ruin your life," Ethan said flatly. "What if I refuse?" The second Mr. Davis heard that, he blew up. He widened his eyes and snapped, "What did you say? Refuse? Do you even understand how serious your mistake is? Fighting is wrong to begin with, especially during the most important period for college applications. The fact that his parents aren't taking legal action against you is already generous enough. And let me tell you, whether you write that apology letter or not, this incident is going on your record. If you refuse to admit your mistake, then I'll have no choice but to call your parents in." At that moment, Ethan actually smiled. Then, Mr. Davis opened the student family information file on his computer. Once he found Ethan's mother's number, he called it right away. Honestly, Ethan did not care. Compared to all the humiliation he swallowed in his past life, and compared to bombing the SAT, this was nothing. That was what had truly let his parents down. Now, nothing could stop him anymore. No matter what Mr. Davis said, Ethan would never write an apology letter. Same answer as before, he was not wrong. Mr. Davis knew the truth better than anyone. As for the disciplinary record, do whatever you want. After saying that, Ethan turned around and walked straight out of the office. What a joke. He had literally been reborn. Did they really think this could scare him? Since he had returned to senior year, Ethan would never back down and admit fault again. Back then, failing his college applications had crushed him completely. But now, those exam questions were still burned into his memory. He swore that every bit of glory he had lost in his last life, he would take it all back. When Ethan returned to the classroom, the whole room exploded. What happened? What happened? A few classmates he was close with immediately crowded around him, asking one question after another. Ethan smiled. "What else? They want me to write an apology letter, put it on my record, and announce it to the whole school. But I already told the teacher I'm not writing it." After that, Ethan sat down, pulled out his textbook, and got ready to study seriously, reviewing the material. Sam, sitting beside him, gave him a thumbs up and laughed. "Dude is savage. You said you wouldn't write the apology letter? What did the teacher say?" Ethan smiled like he could not care less. "He's calling my parents." When Chloe heard that, her face instantly tightened with panic. She hurried over, grabbed Ethan, and pulled him out into the hallway beside the lockers. Chloe lowered her voice and pleaded, "How could you refuse the teacher? If you don't write the apology letter, and this gets bigger, what if the school suspends you? I know you're angry because I lied. I'm sorry, okay? I didn't want this either, but think about it. Instead of both of us getting punished, isn't it better if you take the blame alone? Are you only happy if I get punished too?" In his previous life, Ethan had been fooled by those exact words. He carried everything alone and became a complete loser in everyone else's eyes. But this time, there was no way he would make the same mistake again. Ethan looked at her and said, "What if I still refuse? And didn't you say you don't like Tyler? So why are you defending him now?" Chloe quickly explained, "I'm not defending him. I just don't want this to get too complicated. If you really don't want to write the apology letter, I can write it for you." Just apologize to the teacher, and this whole thing will be over. Do we really have to drag everyone's parents into this? As she spoke, Chloe could not help grabbing Ethan's arm. Her eyes were full of pleading as she put on a pitiful look. Please, I really don't want my parents to know. Help me this once, and I'll agree to one condition. Ethan smiled, playing along. Any condition? Chloe bit her lip and muttered, don't you like me? I can give you a chance to ask me out. Ethan laughed on the spot. Sorry, but you can save that chance for someone else. After saying that, Ethan turned and went back into the classroom. He had been blind once in his past life. Was he supposed to stay blind in this one too? Besides, even if he wanted to pursue someone, he would go after his real first love. Who would choose a scheming girl like Chloe? Suddenly, Ethan's eyes lit up. At this point in time, that girl should still be getting bullied at Creekwood High next door. Not long after, Mr. Davis called Ethan back to the office again. Seeing his mother, Eleanor, looking at him with a complicated expression, Ethan felt a little conflicted too. Clearly, Eleanor never expected her usually well-behaved son to get into a fight over some jealous high school drama. After all, Ethan had always been the obedient type, and his GPA had always been near the top. Mr. Davis looked at Ethan and said, I've already told your mother about what happened. Explain it to her yourself. Eleanor sighed, pulled Ethan to a corner of the office, and quietly started asking him what was going on. Mom, here's what really happened. Ethan leaned close to his mother's ear and explained in a low voice. In the end, he even took out his phone and opened the iMessage Chloe had sent him. After reading it, Eleanor was furious. So after all that, her son had been framed. Eleanor said angrily, how could this girl lie like that? She immediately took the phone and placed it right in front of Mr. Davis. Eleanor argued, my son really wasn't lying about this. He didn't go there because he saw some Instagram post. This girl told him herself that she was being harassed. My son couldn't stand by and ignore it, so he went over to help. Mr. Davis widened his eyes, clearly not expecting there to be a chat record like this. But he immediately gritted his teeth and said her lying is indeed wrong, but Ethan hitting someone is also a fact. And the person he hit is the football team's quarterback. What if his hands or legs got injured? What about the fall season? Then, Mr. Davis turned back to lecture Ethan. Ethan, I'm only asking you to reflect on the mistake of hitting someone. No matter what happened, you can't use violence, right? Chloe lied, and I will definitely deal with her too. But putting that aside, you were also wrong, weren't you? Ethan laughed as soon as he heard that. Wow, putting that aside, amazing. Who would have thought a teacher could say something that ridiculous? Mr. Davis, if we put the facts aside, is there a chance I'm Abraham Lincoln? They were the ones at fault from the start, so why am I the only one being punished? How about all three of us get written up and announced to the whole school? I don't care. Mr. Davis was instantly furious. Look at this kid. He made a mistake, but he has no intention of admitting it. He even dares to talk back to me. I think a 1,500-word apology letter isn't enough. You'll write at least 3,000 words during detention, and we'll announce it school-wide. You don't show even the slightest remorse. Ethan smiled and asked back, Mr. Davis, Tyler definitely won't be written up or announced, right? Are you sure you're fit to be a teacher? Hearing that, Mr. Davis shot to his feet and roared, Ethan, now you even dare to insult a teacher? Mr. Davis turned to Eleanor and criticized him. You saw that, didn't you? Look at his attitude. I'm done handling this. We're going straight to the dean's office. Ethan sneered inwardly. What use would going to the dean's office be? Did they think he didn't know? Tyler was the dean's son. Would the dean really let his own son take the fall? The moment that was said, the whole thing completely blew up. Half an hour later, inside the dean's office, Dean Miller sat there with a stern face and criticized them. I already know what was said in the guidance counselor's office. You're Ethan's parent, right? Let's not even talk about who was right or wrong first. Let's talk about attitude. He talked back to a teacher and nearly gave his guidance counselor a heart attack. Does that sound acceptable to you? And he said something like, would I let my son take a loss? If my son made a mistake, I would punish him all the same and ground him all the same. I'll confiscate his car keys when I get home. But let me make this clear. Ethan must apologize to his teacher, and he must publicly read a 3,000-word apology letter at the assembly. His behavior has already gone too far. If he can't recognize his mistake and turn himself around, then Oak Ridge High can't teach him anymore. Hearing that last sentence, Eleanor instantly grew anxious. Dean Miller, what do you mean? Are you trying to expel my son? He's already a senior. Dean Miller sat there and snapped. Look at him. He doesn't even respect teachers. And he even said his teacher doesn't deserve to be one. Tell me, how are we supposed to teach a student like that? It's not that we don't want to teach him. It's that there's nothing we can do. Eleanor hurried to explain. I know my child can be a little stubborn, Before she could finish, Ethan suddenly spoke up. Mom, it's not a big deal. If it doesn't work out, I'll transfer. I'm tired of Oak Ridge High anyway. Creekwood High next door isn't bad. Dean Miller was so angry, he nearly lost it. He pointed at Ethan and snapped. Look at him. Ethan's mother, I'm giving him one last chance. Either he writes a serious reflection letter admitting his mistake, or he withdraws from this school. Ethan laughed. Then I'm done with this trash Oak Ridge. After this spread, the entire class exploded. Are you crazy? Transfer? Now? What about your Ivy League applications? Just write the apology letter and admit you were wrong. A few classmates Ethan was on decent terms with came over to persuade him. After all, senior year was the critical point that decided a person's future. The guidance counselor just told me that if you're willing to write the 3,000-word apology letter, accept the disciplinary record, and apologize to him, this whole thing will be over. Otherwise, our whole class won't even get to take AP Chemistry, Willie said, speechlessly. Exactly, it's one thing if you got punished for fighting, but why drag the rest of us into it? Can't you just apologize? Why should the whole class lose class time because of you? Chloe said the teacher wasn't even that angry anymore. You were the one who insisted on arguing with him, and aren't you also getting Chloe punished now? It wasn't enough for you to be punished alone? Now Chloe's parents are being called too, and that makes you happy? Look, Chloe is already crying. She said her parents are on their way to school. Are you even a gentleman? How can you make a girl cry? Just then, the entire classroom suddenly went quiet. Vice Principal Harris coughed twice, then said, "Who's Ethan? Step outside for a moment." Every student looked at Ethan with complicated expressions. Ethan then walked out into the hallway and spoke with Vice Principal Harris alone. He thought the vice principal had come to negotiate calmly. Instead, the man immediately started lecturing him, saying that even if a teacher wronged him, he still had no right to criticize the teacher. Did Ethan think he was some big deal just because he had earned a few A+? Then, Vice Principal Harris snapped. Oak Ridge doesn't need students like you. If you don't want to study here, then don't. Ethan replied flatly. Okay. Vice Principal Harris was so furious, he could barely catch his breath. This was the first time he had ever met such an impossible student, so he exploded on the spot. Then, withdraw from school. At that moment, Chloe's parents finally arrived. But the first thing they did was not scold or discipline their daughter. Instead, they immediately tried to clear Chloe of all responsibility. Chloe's mother pointed at Ethan with a stern face and snapped, "Who do you think you are? You dare say my daughter lied? Teacher, if you ask me, this boy should be moved to another class. He absolutely cannot stay in the same class as our Chloe. I think he still wants to keep harassing Chloe." Eleanor was instantly furious when she heard that and was just about to argue back. But Ethan spoke first. "I'll withdraw. Mom, don't worry. After I leave, my GPA will only get higher." At that moment, the AP physics teacher, Mrs. Peterson, sighed and said, "There was supposed to be a National Science Olympiad next month, and I was planning to recommend you for it. It's a very good opportunity. With your ability, if you placed well, it could have added something strong to your college applications. Each class only gets one spot. If you withdraw, that spot can only go to someone else." When Chloe's mother heard that, she shamelessly smiled and asked, "Mrs. Peterson, that competition helps with college applications? Then what about our Chloe? Why not let her try?" Mrs. Peterson smiled awkwardly. "Well, her physics grade is only a C." 2 days later, Ethan took his withdrawal form to Mr. Davis for a signature. Mr. Davis looked at him and could not help sighing. "You really are ruining your own future." Then he started criticizing Ethan again. "I'd never seen a student like you. What a waste, especially when your grades are actually good. I was even going to sign you up for the science competition, but look at you now." Ethan said casually, "Mr. Davis, if you apologize to me now, I can consider staying and helping your team compete. If I win an award, your name can even go on it." Mr. Davis's face darkened immediately. "Just get out." Then he signed the withdrawal form on the spot. "Take this to the dean's office for Dean Miller's signature, then submit it to the principal's office." A short while later, Ethan arrived at the dean's office. Dean Miller glanced at the form and said coldly, "Withdrawing, are you?" Then he signed it, not forgetting to mock Ethan a few times afterward. Finally, Ethan went to the principal's office. This time, he was looking for Principal Sterling. He took a deep breath and said, "Hello, Principal Sterling. I'm Ethan. I'm applying to withdraw from school, so please sign this." Ethan handed over the application form. Principal Sterling frowned and looked at the reason written on the form. Conflict with guidance counselor, unable to continue studying, applying for withdrawal. "So you're the student who talked back to a teacher, right? What a shame." Principal Sterling did feel it was a pity. It was rare to have a straight-A student withdraw like this. But a student who fought, talked back to teachers, and even showed no respect for the dean, really could not be kept around. The corner of Ethan's mouth lifted slightly as an idea suddenly flashed through his mind. Principal Sterling, I heard the school is applying for the state blue ribbon school designation. If the school needs me, then as long as Mr. Davis and Dean Miller apologize to me, I might consider staying. Principal Sterling immediately gave Ethan a cold look. This was the first time anyone had dared to make demands like that to him. The boy was simply arrogant to the extreme. Get out. You have no respect. You talk back to teachers, and now you dare ask teachers to apologize to you? With that, he signed the form immediately and approved Ethan's withdrawal. Ethan returned to the classroom and was packing up his locker when Sam, who sat next to him, sighed and said, "Man, I'm doomed. Now no one's going to let me copy answers on quizzes anymore." Ethan rolled his eyes and laughed. Is copying answers all you know? Can't you study for once? Sam spread his hands helplessly. I tried studying, man. I still can't learn it. What am I supposed to do? Ethan remembered clearly that in his previous life, Sam had been one of the few friends he was actually close with. Later, after Ethan bombed the SAT and went to community college, the two of them even happened to meet again at a state university in the same city. It was also Sam who told Ethan that Chloe and Tyler had gotten engaged. Not long after graduation, news spread that the two were going to have a wedding. Both sides invited plenty of high school classmates to attend, and in the end, Ethan became the only clown in the story. Thinking about it now, Ethan only found it ridiculous and pathetic. At that moment, Sam secretly glanced at Chloe in the distance. Then he lowered his voice and complained, "I heard Chloe's mom even came to the class to talk to the other students and asked everyone to keep an eye out. She told them not to let you get close to Chloe again." Ethan simply smiled after hearing that. "Doesn't matter. I'm transferring anyway." Finally, the dismissal bell rang. Everyone began packing up, and Ethan was about to leave this school for good. He turned and walked toward the classroom door. But suddenly, someone called out, "Hey." Chloe stood there hesitantly and said, "I wasn't trying to hurt you. I just seen Ethan actually withdraw in the end." She finally seemed to feel a little guilty. Ethan turned back to look at Chloe and said flatly, "Honestly, when you lied to the teacher, I really was angry. I didn't expect you to be that kind of person." Chloe's eyes reddened as she said, sounding hurt, How could I possibly be trying to hurt you on purpose?" Ethan looked at the girl in front of him. But there was no trace of the affection he used to have for her. Her explanation now was nothing more than an excuse. At her core, she had never been a good person. Ethan could not help snapping, "You really are a two-faced snake. And you even got involved with Tyler. Block me on IG and Snapchat." After saying that, Ethan turned and walked away. He had been holding those words in for far too long. Even when Chloe and Tyler got married in his previous life, Ethan had imagined countless times that he would storm into the church and curse them out. But in the end, it had only ever been a fantasy. He never expected he would actually get the chance to say it out loud today. Sure enough, being reborn felt damn good. He would never live with that kind of humiliation again. After returning home, the first thing Ethan did was open his computer. Then he logged into the school's anonymous Reddit community and found the serial post he had been updating. "I'm very sorry. Due to personal reasons, the author has withdrawn from school, so updates will be paused for now." Over the past few days since his rebirth, Ethan had used his spare time to post a serialized story in the school forum. At first, he was just doing it for fun, testing whether he had any talent for writing stories on Wattpad. But he never expected his transfer to happen so suddenly. Since he was leaving Oak Ridge High anyway, there was no point continuing to update it there. Because of that, Ethan made a special apology post to his readers. After the pause notice appeared, a flood of comments quickly showed up under the post. "Why pause it all of a sudden? Hope you can resume updates soon." Looking at those comments, Ethan immediately smiled. It seemed he really did have some talent after all. In the blink of an eye, Monday arrived. Ethan successfully transferred from Oak Ridge High into Creekwood High. Although Creekwood High's faculty was roughly on par with Oak Ridge's, its Ivy League acceptance rate was slightly lower. At that moment, his dad was driving his Ford pickup, with a stern look on his face. "You really know how to cause trouble. You even scared your grandfather. Luckily, Creekwood High agreed to take you. Otherwise, I really would have broken your legs." Before long, the truck arrived at the entrance of Creekwood High. Because Ethan's GPA was still decent, the transfer process was completed quickly, and even his class assignment had already been arranged. Senior Class D was Creekwood High's AP Science-focused class, and its homeroom teacher, Ms. Bennett, taught literature. The dean brought Ethan to Ms. Bennett, the homeroom teacher for Senior Class D. After briefly introducing Ethan's glorious history, the dean turned and left. Ethan then made a small request. "Ms. Bennett, I'd like to sit next to Mia. is that okay? Ms. Bennett froze for a moment. Mia? You know her? Ethan replied, an old classmate. I know her. Ms. Bennett smiled as well. All right. As they talked, they arrived at the classroom door. Inside, the math teacher, Mr. Robinson, was giving the students a pop quiz. Ms. Bennett nodded politely, then led Ethan into the classroom and smiled at the students. Everyone, let me introduce a transfer student joining our class. After that, Ms. Bennett let Ethan step forward and introduce himself. Ethan said, Hi everyone, my name is Ethan. My GPA is average, but I'm a model student with excellent character and I never fight. Standing beside him, Miss Bennett almost burst out laughing when she heard that. Then she said, From now on, Ethan will be joining our class. For now, he'll sit next to Mia. As soon as she finished speaking, a nerdy but cute girl wearing glasses raised her head and secretly glanced at Ethan. In truth, this was also Ethan's first time seeing Mia. But he recognized her almost instantly. Mia gave off a very timid and restrained feeling. She was the type of student who barely spoke and was not very good at socializing. She might even be the kind of girl who got bullied by cheerleaders or small cliques. Girls like her were usually extremely low profile in high school. So low profile, they were practically invisible. But after graduation, when everyone looked back through LinkedIn or alumni groups, they would suddenly realize they had completely misjudged her. Many students from the same graduating class, even her own classmates, would be shocked. Even Ethan, who had graduated from Oak Ridge High in his previous life, had heard plenty of news about Mia becoming a rising star in Silicon Valley. That alone showed how famous Mia became later on. At that moment, Ethan took the initiative and walked over. Then he placed his backpack on the desk beside Mia. After Ethan sat down, Mr. Robinson casually handed him a quiz sheet as well. You can take this too. We'll go over it in class tomorrow. Ethan nodded. Yes, sir. No one expected that the moment the bell rang, Ethan, the new transfer student, would instantly become like an animal in a zoo. Even students from the neighboring class came to the hallway lockers to watch the show, pointing and whispering about him. Is that him? I just asked my cousin at Oak Ridge on Snapchat. I heard he got into a fight with the varsity quarterback, then talked back to his guidance counselor, and finally had to withdraw. No, I heard he fought someone because he was chasing a girl, but the girl didn't even like him. That's hilarious. So he's basically the ultimate simp? Ethan never expected that even after transferring schools, the fight caused by Chloe would still leave him with the reputation of being a simp. At that moment, Chris, one of the top students in AP Physics, took the initiative to greet him. Bro, you're the guy who got kicked out of Oak Ridge for fighting? That's wild. A pretty and stylishly dressed female student walked over. Harper smiled and said, Chris, you don't know the whole story. He was chasing Oak Ridge's homecoming queen and even beat up the varsity quarterback because of it. Apparently, that quarterback was also the dean's son, so that's why he was forced to withdraw. Oh, right, I actually know Chloe. Ethan looked at this new classmate in surprise. You know Chloe? Harper smiled. Chloe and I went to the same middle school. Ethan clicked his tongue. Then I guess transferring was pointless. No wonder he had barely sat down after transferring from Oak Ridge, and his whole backstory had already been exposed. Harper blinked, then suddenly asked with an expectant smile. Then why don't you try giving up on Chloe and ask me out instead? The classmates nearby immediately started laughing and teasing her. Don't you already have Jackson? Harper laughed back. I never agreed to be Jackson's dance date. Besides, I like straight A academic guys. His GPA was in the top 5% at Oak Ridge. If he comes here, he's probably top 3 in our grade. And I think he's funny. He's obviously a top student, but during his intro, he said his GPA was average. He clearly withdrew because of a fight, but he said he never uses violence. Harper looked at Ethan with eager eyes. So? Or I can ask you out first. I feel like you're exactly my type. And I'm different from Chloe. If someone fought a varsity player for me, I'd be moved to tears. Okay? Ethan carefully looked Harper over. To be fair, among high school girls, Harper really was a textbook cheerleader level beauty. Once she got to college, if she joined a sorority, she would definitely become one of the popular girls. But right then, a voice suddenly came from the side. Isn't he just a pathetic simp? The girl didn't even like him, but he still fought for her, got written up, and had to withdraw. How stupid can you get? Jackson glanced at Ethan, his tone full of warning. You'd better stay away from Harper. After saying that, Jackson walked out with a few guys in varsity jackets. If this had been Ethan's previous life, he might really have been intimidated by that jock attitude. After all, Jackson looked exactly like the kind of school bully who was hard to mess with. But now, looking at the self-important high school jock, Ethan only found him ridiculous. Honestly, a lot of the so-called big shots who strutted around in high school would end up looking pretty ordinary after graduation. Check LinkedIn a few years later, and many of them were just working fast food jobs or low-level sales. And plenty of those untouchable pretty girls from high school either dropped out early with kids or became housewives worn down by life. Thinking of that, Ethan glanced again at Mia, who was sitting beside him with her head down, quietly doing her AP homework. Sure enough, his shy little rich girl was still better. Then Ethan leaned on the desk and asked tentatively, "What about you? Have you heard about me too?" Mia froze for a moment, looking a little dazed, then gently shook her head. Ethan smiled. "Good. Then let's introduce ourselves properly. I'm Ethan." Mia looked nervously at this transfer student, then glanced at Jackson, who had just walked out. In a small voice, she asked, "Do you fight a lot?" Ethan immediately replied, "No, I don't. They're just making stuff up." Mia quietly reminded him. "Then be careful." Ethan asked, "Why?" Mia said with some concern, "Because Jackson might corner you in the locker room or the parking lot." Ethan paused. "Jackson is the guy in the varsity jacket who just talked to me." Mia nodded seriously. "It's true. Jackson has been trying to ask Harper to the dance." Ethan said calmly, "It's fine. It won't go that far. By the way, do you have a boyfriend?" That sudden question made Mia freeze completely. She stared at Ethan, stunned. Then, she shook her head hard, showing that she did not. Ethan's eyes lit up as he followed up. "Then what do you think of me? Want to consider dating me?" Mia was startled, and her face instantly turned red. She got so nervous that she started stammering. "Hi, there's a calculus problem I don't understand. I'm going to ask the teacher." Then Mia grabbed a worksheet and hurried out of the classroom in a panic. Seeing Mia react like that, Ethan guessed she probably had not even been approached by boys before, let alone someone like him, who came right out and asked if she wanted to date. Of course she was scared. For some reason, Ethan felt especially excited. Maybe life at Creekwood High really was going to be interesting. It wasn't until the bell rang that Mia finally returned to the classroom nervously. She did not even dare to raise her head. Holding her worksheet, she quickly walked back to her seat. Clearly, after that direct flirting from earlier, she was both nervous and shy, and had no idea how to respond. Then AP Literature teacher Ms. Bennett walked into the classroom. She looked up at Ethan, then said with a serious expression, "I heard some people were gossiping about the new student in the hallway. I don't care what happened at his previous school. Since he's in our class now, he's part of Creekwood. I don't want to see anyone forming cliques behind his back or bullying him. All right, I'm handing out the quiz now. Today we'll be working on real SAT reading passages, and I'll go over the answers after you finish." Clearly, Ms. Bennett had also heard some of the rumors about Ethan's transfer, which was why she had made a point of warning everyone before class started. During class, Ethan discovered something pleasantly surprising. As a reborn person, his vocabulary and reading comprehension completely crushed these ordinary high school students. Although he had messed up the SAT reading section back when he applied to college, in his previous life, he had still studied for the GRE and TOEFL in college, and worked through countless original English academic texts. So whether it was vocabulary, complex sentence structures, or the logic behind English essay writing, he was far ahead of regular high schoolers. After completing an entire SAT reading set, Ethan only missed one question. In his previous life, he had performed badly, and only scored 550 on SAT reading. If he had performed normally, he should have been around 650. But in this life, Ethan felt confident he could push above 780 and reach a top-tier score. After all, he now had two natural advantages. First, during college and his previous life, he had memorized a massive number of advanced words for graduate school and exchange programs. Second, he even clearly remembered the actual SAT questions from back then. At the front of the classroom, Ms. Bennett suddenly spoke. "All right, everyone has checked the answers now. There were 25 reading questions in total. Raise your hand if you missed 5 or fewer." A wave of hands immediately went up. Ethan glanced around. Out of 30 students in the class, 8 had raised their hands. It seemed this AP-focused class really was not that far behind Oak Ridge. Ms. Bennett continued, 4 or fewer. As soon as she said that, 3 students lowered their hands, leaving only 5 still raised. Clearly, these were the top students preparing to apply to elite schools. What surprised Ethan a little was that Harper, the girl who had just approached him earlier, still had her hand raised too. It seemed her reading score really was solid. 3 or fewer. Out of the 5 remaining students, only 1 still had a hand up. Ms. Bennett smiled and asked, "Harper, how many did you miss?" Harper replied, "Ms. Bennett, I missed 2. Ms. Bennett nodded with a smile. "Not bad. This set was fairly difficult. I pulled the questions from past SAT banks and AP practice materials. Finally, Ms. Bennett suddenly looked at Ethan and asked curiously, Ethan, your transcript from your previous school was straight A's. Your AP English should be pretty strong. How many did you miss? As soon as she said that, everyone in class turned to look at Ethan, as if waiting for him to either embarrass himself or show off. Since Ethan had just transferred, he figured it was better to stay low-key, so he casually said, Ms. Bennett, I missed quite a few. I didn't do well. Ms. Bennett comforted him. That's fine. Mia, who sits right next to you, is one of the top English students in the grade. If there's any grammar you don't understand, you can ask her. Ethan's eyes immediately lit up. That's perfect. I happen to have a lot I don't understand. Mia instantly grew nervous and said guiltily, Ms. Bennett, I'm not very good at tutoring. Clearly, Ethan had scared her earlier, and now she did not even dare look his way. Harper took the initiative and smiled. I can do it, Miss Bennett. I'm a peer tutor for the class. I can tutor the new student. After saying that, Harper winked at Ethan and gave him what she thought was a charming and confident smile. Ethan smiled and said, No need. Mia can teach me. Right then, Jackson leaned back in his seat and said lazily, So much for the top student from Oak Ridge. Doesn't seem that impressive. If he missed more than 5 questions on a test this easy, his SAT reading probably won't even break 600. I thought Oak Ridge's top students were supposed to be amazing. Harper rolled her eyes at Jackson. Anyone could tell he was targeting the new student on purpose. His overall GPA is high. It's not like English is the only subject. Maybe he has perfect scores in AP Calculus and Physics. You're the one who's only good at sports and failing everything else. Ms. Bennett stepped in at the right time. All right, that's enough. Oak Ridge is Oak Ridge and Creekwood is Creekwood. Creekwood's academic level is not worse than other schools, so let's not get caught up in school rivalries. Speaking of this, I just remembered. Next week, there will be a regional speech and debate tournament at the state level. Each class has 3 varsity recommendation spots. Anyone interested can come sign up with me. This tournament is cross-district and requires a strong vocabulary and excellent impromptu speaking ability. It tests students' breadth of reading and critical thinking. If you place, it can strengthen your Ivy League applications, earn scholarship opportunities, and make Creekwood proud. Hearing that, Ethan immediately became interested and raised his hand. Ms. Bennett, I want to sign up. Jackson mocked him right away. There are only 3 spots per class. You can't even handle a pop quiz. And you want to go get destroyed at a district tournament? Ms. Bennett, if you just hand him a spot out of nowhere, that would be unfair to the students who have been preparing for a long time. Ethan looked at him with amusement. Why do I feel like you, the quarterback, have been targeting me, the transfer student? Jackson shrugged. I'm not targeting you. I'm just saying, if there are only 3 spots, then obviously there should be tryouts. And the teacher just said this represents Creekwood, so of course we should send the real top students. Ms. Bennett smiled. How about this? Let's first see how many students sign up. If exactly 3 people sign up, we'll confirm the list directly. If more students sign up, we'll arrange an open selection. We'll settle it that way for now. Before class ended, Ms. Bennett specifically walked over to Ethan's desk and said, Ethan, let me see your quiz paper. Since Ethan had just transferred, Ms. Bennett probably still was not sure what his actual academic foundation looked like. She wanted to see how strong his fundamentals really were, so she could provide more targeted support for him later. Ethan froze for a moment, then handed over the paper. Here it is, Ms. Bennett. Also, remember to save me a spot for the debate tournament. I'm really good at it. Ms. Bennett gave him a polite but dismissive smile. Let me look at your paper first. But the next second, Ms. Bennett glanced over the sheet and froze. This SAT-level reading test was almost entirely correct, with only one tricky multiple-answer question marked wrong. She could not help asking, Didn't you say you did badly? Why did you only miss one option? The moment she said that, every student in the class widened their eyes and looked at Ethan in disbelief. Ethan sighed with an utterly sincere expression. Ms. Bennett, missing even one question on something like this is already my Waterloo. If it isn't a perfect score, then it's a failure. The entire classroom exploded at once, filled with boos, gasps, and shocked cries. Harper, the class peer tutor, even covered her mouth in excitement. That's insane. No wonder he's a top student from Oak Ridge. The corner of Jackson's mouth twitched slightly. He glanced at his own paper, covered in red marks, then gritted his teeth and muttered, What a damn show-off. Ms. Bennett could not help laughing as she looked at Ethan. You really are something. If you did this well, why didn't you raise your hand earlier? Excellent work. Keep it up. After seeing Ethan's paper, The weight in Ms. Bennett's heart instantly lifted. After all, the dean had told her in advance that the class would be receiving a transfer student with top-tier grades. For a moment, she had really thought Ethan might be a typical science nerd, strong in STEM, but weaker in humanities. Now it seemed his literary reading ability was just as outstanding. Ethan had just slipped the quiz paper into his binder when he heard a girl behind him complain. "Why did it stop updating? Harper, that Oak Ridge High School story you recommended last time, the one serialized on Reddit or Wattpad, just got paused." Two girls immediately gathered around Harper and started discussing it. Even Mia quietly took out her iPhone and opened the post to check. Sure enough, she saw the author's notice about pausing updates. Ethan asked curiously, "You follow it too?" Mia bit her lip and carefully nodded. Ethan asked again, "How is it? Is it interesting?" Mia nodded again. "Very interesting." Ethan instantly smiled in satisfaction, even though it was only something he had casually written to kill time. But Olivia, sitting right in front of them, happened to overhear. She turned around and looked at Ethan, the transfer student from Oak Ridge. She asked curiously, "Aren't you from Oak Ridge? Do you happen to know who wrote that insanely popular serial?" Ethan pretended to be surprised. "You read it too? Why do I feel like your whole class is following it?" Mia answered quietly, "Mr. Anderson recommended it." Ethan paused in surprise. "Mr. Anderson?" Olivia explained. "Our creative writing teacher. I think he brought it up in class a day or two ago. He said there was an anonymous serial on Oak Ridge's forum, and the writing style and metaphors were really interesting. Everyone got curious and searched it up. Then we found out it was actually addictive. Oak Ridge really does have some talented people. Someone actually wrote a dark comedy novel that good." Ethan finally understood. No wonder the random idea he had written for fun suddenly gained so much traffic. It turned out an English teacher had been promoting it for free. The corner of Ethan's mouth lifted slightly. It seemed he could test the waters with Mr. Anderson during creative writing later. If the teacher really thought it was good, Ethan could submit the book to Amazon Kindle and publish it as an ebook for royalties. Just then, Harper suddenly called out loudly, "Transfer student, Ethan, do you know the anonymous writing legend from your school forum?" In an instant, everyone's eyes landed on Ethan. Clearly their gossip instincts had been fully awakened. After all, Ethan came from Oak Ridge and was a top student in that circle. Maybe he really knew some inside information. Ethan smiled faintly. "Yeah, I know him. Very well." As soon as he said that, many students grew excited. "I feel like this script would blow up if it got sold to Netflix. I've never seen such a fresh premise before. The original author is basically a genius." Ethan deliberately kept them in suspense and lowered his voice with a smile. "It's not that exaggerated. I'll ask him on Discord later and see when he plans to resume updates." Facing this group of passionate fans his own age, Ethan felt the thrill of being a content creator so directly for the first time, across both lifetimes. He even deliberately glanced at his shy, adorable seatmate, the future Silicon Valley billionaire, only to find Mia staring at him like a curious little kid, her big eyes blinking behind her glasses. Ethan smiled. "Once I find out, I'll tell you guys the inside scoop first." The students could only scatter back to their seats, still wanting more. But to them, this was already good news. Just then, the class bell rang. This period happened to be Mr. Anderson's creative writing class. A moment later, the bearded Mr. Anderson walked into the classroom with his handouts. "I heard we have a transfer student in class." Ethan immediately raised his hand. "Right here." Mr. Anderson flipped through the roster and nodded. "I looked at the academic file you transferred from Oak Ridge. Your essay score seems to have always been your weak point, right?" Ethan nodded. "Yes, sir." In truth, in his previous life, he had indeed struggled badly with analyzing things like Shakespeare and classical literature, which kept his scores down. Those tedious poetry analyses also bored him. So his SAT writing score back then had been extremely average. After that, Mr. Anderson started teaching at the front of the room, while Ethan turned to Mia and whispered with a grin, "Mia, your cursive is really pretty, clean and delicate just like you. Honestly, if you switch to contacts, you'd definitely be gorgeous." Mia shyly bit her lower lip. She had no experience being flirted with by a boy during class, and in her panic, she could only keep her head down and take notes, pretending she had not heard him. Seeing Mia bury her head and take notes like an ostrich, Ethan felt too embarrassed to keep teasing her, so he quietly took out his phone under the desk, opened the notes app, and started writing his novel. Finally, the bell rang. Mr. Anderson stepped down from the podium and caught a glimpse of Ethan's phone before he could put it away. His expression darkened immediately. "Were you texting under the desk this whole time? Playing on your phone for the entire class?" The surrounding students instantly put on expressions of people waiting for a show. A few boys nearby had already seen Ethan blind typing under the desk, thinking this Oak Ridge top student was about to get his phone confiscated on his very first day. Ethan nodded calmly. "I'm not really into classical literature." Mr. Anderson's face darkened as he pointed straight toward the door. "Come with me to the hallway." The classroom instantly erupted, with whispers spreading everywhere. In the hallway outside the classroom, Mr. Anderson frowned and said sternly, "Why were you on your phone during my class? Your file says writing is your weak point. Don't you want to use this semester to fix your GPA?" Ethan pressed his lips together, then smiled. "Mr. Anderson, my writing isn't actually weak. I deliberately scored low to hold back. I wanted to make a deal with you. During your class, can you let me do independent writing?" Mr. Anderson's frown deepened. "Independent writing? What do you mean?" Ethan unlocked his phone and handed it to him. Mr. Anderson took the phone suspiciously and glanced at the notes app. His eyes went wide. Is this the latest draft of that anonymous serial?" Ethan nodded. "Sir, the viral novel on Oak Ridge's forum was actually written by me. I was using class, just now, to stockpile chapters." Mr. Anderson was stunned. "You wrote it, this?" He quickly opened the Reddit account and confirmed that the logged-in user was indeed the original author. Then he drew in a sharp breath. Mr. Anderson never imagined that the mature, sharp, anonymous author was standing right in front of him. His stern expression instantly collapsed into an appreciative smile. After all, he himself was a loyal reader. Otherwise, he would not have recommended the story in class as reading material. Mr. Anderson gave a wry smile. "But rules are rules, Ethan. Even if the novel really is excellent, you still need to listen during AP class. Your final exam score matters for your college applications." Ethan promised confidently. "My literature level is already far beyond the syllabus. I guarantee I can get a 5 on the final AP exam, and my SAT writing score will be top tier too. Trust me, I would never gamble with my own future." Mr. Anderson stroked his beard and muttered, "Words alone won't prove anything. This still doesn't follow the rules. Unless you can prove it. This Friday the district is holding the quad school mock exams. If you can rank first in the school, I might consider giving you that green light." Ethan immediately asked, "First overall, or just first in ELA?" Mr. Anderson raised an eyebrow. "Of course I mean first in ELA. Didn't you claim you were top tier? As long as your single subject score enters the top 1% in the district, we have a deal." Hearing that, Ethan agreed without the slightest hesitation. "Deal. Then it's settled. If I get first in ELA at this district mock exam, then from now on I'll sit quietly in the back of your class and write my novel." Mr. Anderson raised his eyebrows and tested him. Ethan grinned, his eyes full of confidence. Piece of cake. The so-called quad school mock exams were a joint exam between Oak Ridge, Creekwood, St. Jude Prep, and Jefferson High. Because these California schools had the highest Ivy League acceptance rates, the questions were uniformly drawn from the Education Department's test bank. Among them, Oak Ridge and St. Jude belonged to the absolute top tier, Creekwood was slightly behind, and Jefferson ranked last. Although the mock exam scores would not directly count toward final application GPA, the district ranking was still a highly valuable reference for college admissions offices. Based on data from previous years, anyone who made it into the district top 100 was basically considered a top prospect for the Ivy League. Before letting Ethan return to class, Mr. Anderson suddenly stopped him again and suggested, "By the way, your writing really does have a spark. You might consider entering this year's Scholastic Art and Writing Awards." Ethan's eyes lit up. "You mean that massive national writing competition for high schoolers? The really prestigious one?" Mr. Anderson nodded approvingly. "Exactly. Want to try aiming for a gold key? I heard a few talented students from Oak Ridge have also signed up. Their school even allocated special funding to hire well-known alumni for pre-competition coaching." At last week's district school board meeting, the principal mentioned it. Creekwood originally planned to skip it because the national competition is too intense, and our school has never even gotten a regional nomination before. "But after reading your serial, I think you absolutely have what it takes to test the waters." The corner of Ethan's mouth lifted slightly as he asked, "If I win an award, would that substantially help our school apply for the state blue ribbon school designation?" Mr. Anderson froze for a moment, clearly not expecting a high school student to understand how school achievements worked. Then he smiled. "Of course it would make a huge difference. If we win a national award, Creekwood's reputation will completely take off. Next year's donations and enrollment numbers would both multiply." Mr. Anderson patted Ethan on the shoulder and laughed. "You kid, you've only been here one day, and your heart is already with our Creekwood honors class." At noon in the cafeteria, Ethan received a text message and paused in surprise. He did not expect Sam to already know what was happening. Sam wrote, "Your photo at Creekwood got posted in our anonymous Discord channel. Everyone is digging into why you withdrew and transferred. The younger sister of Chloe's old best friend happens to be in your current class. Ethan replied, I know, it's that cheerleader named Harper. She already talked to me. Sam then sent another message. By the way, bro, that anonymous serial novel you posted on the forum seems to have completely blown up. When I first read the writing style, I almost thought I had the wrong person. You only updated 4 chapters, and it's already gone viral across the whole school. During break today, everyone was crying about why the authors stopped updating. Ethan replied, how do they know I'm the author? Sam immediately answered, they don't. They're just complaining that this mysterious author might have dropped the story. But Chloe definitely knows that's your alt account. The craziest part is, early this morning, Mr. Davis actually came to class specifically to ask about it. He asked, in front of the whole class, whether anyone knew which genius wrote that viral novel on the forum. I heard a superintendent from the state education department came to inspect today and happened to read a printed copy of the serial. Apparently, he couldn't stop praising it. Principal Sterling even said he wanted to include the piece in this year's yearbook and the school library. Should I secretly tell old Davis that it's actually your alt? Although Sam held back and did not say anything, Chloe, that scheming girl, took the initiative to run to the faculty office and tell Mr. Davis that she knew the anonymous author's real identity. At that moment, Mr. Davis was smiling brightly. Chloe, perfect timing. I knew that genius viral hit on our school network had to be written by one of our own students. The higher-ups from the education department just happened to be here researching campus culture, and they immediately noticed the depth and ideas in this piece. Principal Sterling wants to use this opportunity to raise the profile of our literature club and have this mysterious author get a special presentation for the whole school. So, is the student from our class? Chloe's eyes darted away as she hesitated, then bit her lip and nodded. Yes. Mr. Davis immediately looked at Chloe with excitement and smiled. Who wrote it? Chloe fell silent for a moment. Deep down, she was going through an insane internal battle because the bad student they had personally forced to withdraw was the author himself. Right then, Vice Principal Harris called the office line, urgently asking whether the author had been found. Mr. Davis confidently promised, yes, confirmed. It was written by a good student from my class. I'll bring the student over right away. After hanging up, Mr. Davis finally remembered that Chloe still had not revealed that shining name. So he quickly urged her, right, stop keeping me in suspense. Which top student wrote it? Mr. Davis stared at Chloe with glowing eyes, as if he could already see the promotion and raise it would bring him. Chloe stammered, going pale, and whispered awkwardly, Mr. Davis, maybe we should just forget about this. Mr. Davis frowned, but still smiled. Forget about what? This is a tremendous honor. Don't tell me you wrote it yourself and are too embarrassed to admit it. Chloe immediately waved her hands in panic as if she had been burned. No. It definitely wasn't me. Mr. Davis pressed her. Then say the name. What's there to hide? He comforted her with a smile. Don't worry, the school absolutely won't punish him just because he wrote a little campus gossip in there. The principal wants to commend him. In the end, Chloe had no choice. She closed her eyes and spoke the name in an extremely faint voice. It was Ethan. Hearing that name, the smile on Mr. Davis's face instantly froze. He stood there as if struck by lightning. What? You're saying the novel that impressed the education department was written by Ethan, the student who got expelled? Chloe lowered her head so far it was almost buried, her voice barely above a whisper. It's 100% him. The anonymous posting account is the gaming account he had linked to his Instagram. Mr. Davis was completely stunned. His brain buzzed and his whole reality seemed to shatter. How is that possible? His ELA transcript has always been mediocre. He couldn't even write a decent essay. How could that troublemaker have writing skills at that level? Chloe nervously twisted her fingers. I don't know how he suddenly got so good either, but the account's data fingerprint really is Ethan. I can even match the interface layout to screenshots he sent me before. Mr. Davis immediately clutched his forehead in pain, practically wanting to strangle the girl in front of him. Holy crap, then why didn't you drop this bomb earlier when you walked in? Vice Principal Harris was asking me for the author on the phone just now. Why didn't you stop me and say it was Ethan, the student we already forced to withdraw? So, after all that, the author had already been kicked out by us and transferred to the high school next door. I even confidently guaranteed it to the school leadership just now. If the superintendent suddenly asks to meet the author, where am I supposed to produce him out of thin air? Chloe looked so miserable, she was about to cry. I'm sorry, sir. I was scared out of my mind too. I just didn't dare say it. After all, you signed his withdrawal papers in this very office yesterday. Mr. Davis was so furious, he almost started cursing out loud. The worst part was that just 10 minutes ago, he had been bragging wildly in the school-wide faculty Slack group, claiming the genius author was from his own class. Now the backlash had come flying back like a boomerang and hit him right in the face. A student he had personally driven away for bad conduct, a student who had insulted him to his face, had now become the genius the school board wanted to turn into the school's new poster child. Mr. Davis clenched his back teeth and growled under his breath. Anyway, that kid already posted an indefinite hiatus notice online. You just insist you don't know who wrote it. I'll make up an excuse and cover it up with the school leadership. Do you understand? Seal your mouth shut. Do not tell anyone that the author is Ethan. Just say you investigated the wrong lead. Chloe seemed to want to say something, because she also felt this lie would not stay hidden forever. But seeing the murderous look in Mr. Davis's eyes, she forced the words back down. Mr. Davis rubbed his throbbing temples hard, forcing himself to take deep breaths and stabilize his emotions before he completely broke down. Finally, he took out his phone and nervously dialed Vice Principal Harris's direct line. Vice Principal Harris, I'm terribly sorry. I just called in the suspected student and questioned him. It turned out to be a huge misunderstanding. That serial was actually plagiarized and reposted from some obscure blogger on Tumblr. There was only a small amount of saved material, and there's nothing after that. So this is a plagiarism scandal. It absolutely cannot be publicly commended. After hanging up nervously, Mr. Davis collapsed into his swivel chair as if all his strength had left him, then let out a long breath of relief. But to prevent any future disaster, and because he was afraid some sharp-eyed internet sleuth in class might expose Ethan's alt account, he felt he had to go to the classroom immediately for damage control. Mr. Davis then hurried to the classroom door and found the foreign language teacher inside, just about to start a slideshow. Mr. Davis forced out an awkward smile and interrupted. Sorry to take up 1 minute, everyone. I'm here to announce a disciplinary matter. Regarding the viral serial on the school forum, the discussion ends here. The school has already confirmed that it was just an unfinished reposted piece. The principal has ordered that no one discuss it anymore. No one is allowed to dig into who the author is, and no one is allowed to spread rumors. Put all that excess energy back into your GPA. The quad school mock exams are next week, so all of you had better get serious. Scoring well is what actually matters. However, just as Mr. Davis thought he had covered everything perfectly and was about to turn around and leave with dignity, a boy sitting in the back suddenly stared at his phone and shouted, Mr. Davis, you're lying. The novel just updated. I got the notification 5 minutes ago. Mr. Davis's heart suddenly trembled, as if he had been struck by lightning. His whole body froze in place. Updated? Are you kidding me? In an instant, the previously silent classroom completely lost control. Everyone ignored the ban, pulled out their phones, and frantically refreshed the Reddit page. Sure enough, the Oak Ridge sensation Rebels Dropout had dropped a brand new 2,000-word chapter in an extremely high-profile comeback, only 2 days after announcing its hiatus. Mr. Davis stared stiffly at the phone screen a student in the front row handed him, his mind already drowning in a storm of panic and rage. Under the mix of fear and anger, he completely snapped, roaring without the slightest composure. Who gave you permission to look at your phones during class? Put every phone on the podium right now. Detention. The whole class gets detention. The students looked at one another, all terrified into silence by his furious meltdown. Only after Mr. Davis slammed the door and left did everyone breathe a sigh of relief, whispering in lingering shock, did old Davis forget his meds today? Why did he suddenly lose it like that? At that moment, Sam, sitting in the corner, seemed to have already guessed the truth behind this absurd drama, and the corner of his mouth curved into a mocking smile. He secretly glanced at Chloe in front of him from the corner of his eye. Sure enough, her face was pale as paper, and her body was trembling unnaturally. With the unspoken understanding between bros, Sam immediately hid his hand inside his sleeve and blind typed a message, live streaming the epic drama that had just happened in the Oak Ridge classroom to Ethan. Meanwhile, Mr. Davis, who had fled back to his office with his tail between his legs, was painfully grabbing at his thinning hair. I'm finished. What am I supposed to do now? 10 minutes ago, I just told the principal it was an unfinished plagiarized repost, and now that bastard immediately updated a perfectly coherent continuation. If I go to the administration now and admit that this masterpiece was written by Ethan, the student I forced out, that's basically exposing myself for lying to everyone above me. But if I keep denying it, and the principal follows the trail, checks the IP and finds him, won't I lose my job on the spot? At this life or death moment, Mr. Davis suddenly had an idea. Like a drowning man grabbing a lifeline, and immediately called Dean Miller's internal line. After all, Dean Miller had also contributed to forcing Ethan out back then. Mr. Davis spilled the entire truth about the serial novel without holding anything back, telling his partner in crime. On the other end of the phone, Dean Miller slammed the desk in rage after hearing everything. Are you out of your mind? When you first found out, you could have just said the original author had transferred schools and been done with it. But no, you had to get clever and make up some nonsense about plagiarism. Now the author is updating online again. How are you going to cover that lie? I'm not taking the blame for this mess. Clean up your own crap. Mr. Davis gritted his teeth too. Then what am I supposed to do? Say your son got into a fight, colluded with that girl on their testimony, and helped to force Ethan to withdraw? As soon as those words landed, the phone fell into instant silence. Dean Miller's tone turned cold. Then what do you want? Mr. Davis frowned and said, we go straight to the mod of the school Reddit forum. Use the excuse that it's affecting student studies, then ban Ethan's account or delete the post. At the same time, students at Creekwood High also discovered that the novel had resumed updates. Immediately, quite a few of them pulled out their phones and logged in to check. Just then, Chris, the AP Physics top student, ran over and stood beside Ethan. Hey, don't you know the author? Can you ask him to update on a fixed schedule? His writing is insane. Right then, Mia suddenly let out a soft, ah. It's gone. Why did his post get removed? Everyone was instantly confused. They had just been reading it perfectly fine, yet in the blink of an eye, it had been deleted. Ethan frowned, sensing something was off. He checked his Reddit account and found that the post had really been removed by an administrator. Ethan blurted out with a teasing laugh. Wow, that's impressive. They're really trying to wipe me out. Cancel me, huh? Olivia, sitting in the front, asked curiously, what do you mean? Ethan was just about to explain when he noticed that math teacher Mr. Robinson had already arrived at the classroom door. So he casually sent an iMessage to his buddy Sam at Oak Ridge. Unexpectedly, Sam had already messaged first. Your post got deleted. Feels like old Davis is behind it. He was just warning us in class not to talk about it. At that moment, math teacher Mr. Robinson cleared his throat at the front of the class and said, you should all know about Friday's quad school mock exams, right? This time, seats will be randomized and students will exchange test centers with other schools. So take it seriously. Next, I'm handing out 2 papers. They're AP Calculus questions from the joint exam 2 years ago. I copied part of it, and the other part consists of extra questions I added myself. Could I get a volunteer to pass these out? However, right then, creative writing teacher Mr. Anderson arrived at the classroom door, knocked lightly, and smiled. Ethan, could you step out for a moment? Everyone curiously looked at Ethan, who was sitting in the back row. After they stepped into the hallway, Mr. Anderson lowered his voice and asked, why was your serial deleted? Ethan shrugged and smiled. No idea. Mr. Anderson frowned. No one notified you? I just heard from an Oak Ridge teacher that the district superintendent praised your work. How did it suddenly get deleted? Ethan's eyes immediately lit up. I get it, sir. Because I've already withdrawn, they want to erase the evidence. If this keeps spreading, it won't be good for them. Mr. Anderson smiled in realization. That does make sense. Then why don't you move the updates directly to Creekwood's official forum or Wattpad? You're one of our students now, so no one will delete your posts. And if you win a gold key at the Scholastic Art and Writing Awards later, maybe this novel could even be published directly. After that, Ethan returned to the classroom and went back to his lesson. Before long, the math teacher said, 5-minute break. We'll continue after that. But just as Ethan stood up and prepared to go to the restroom, Harper suddenly ran over with a bright smile. I know a secret. Then she leaned close to Ethan's ear and whispered, you wrote that novel, didn't you? Ethan raised an eyebrow slightly. Chloe told you? Harper smiled smugly. I'm not telling you. Ethan leaned toward the cheerleader's ear as well and whispered, then I'll tell you a secret too. I'm planning to restart the serial on Creekwood's forum. As soon as he said that, Harper smiled happily and clapped her hands. At that moment, Ethan suddenly noticed that the pen on his desk and the loose-leaf notebook he had borrowed from Mia earlier were both gone. He looked at Mia in surprise and asked, did you take back the pen and notebook? Seeing Mia stay silent, Ethan reached out to take them himself. But Mia stopped him. No, go borrow from your Harper. Ethan burst out laughing and looked at the stiff expression on Mia, his adorable seatmate. Are you jealous? Mia gave a small humph and said, aren't you too close? Why are you asking me? He had to admit, his little rich girl Mia looked pretty cute when she got jealous. Seeing that his adorable seatmate was still angry, Ethan thought for a moment, then simply unlocked his phone, opened his Reddit account, and showed her his author page. Mia stubbornly glanced at it, but in the next second, she covered her mouth in shock. Ethan quickly put a finger to his lips with a smile, stopping the words that were about to burst out of her mouth. Then he whispered, now you know the secret, right? After that, Ethan told Mia everything. how Harper found out he was the author, and the real reason he had fought the dean's son back at Oak Ridge. During PE on Wednesday, the coach had everyone run 1 mile around the track, which was 1,600 meters. Ethan looked at Mia's clumsy running form and instantly understood why guys had never really shown much interest in her. She probably did not have many close female friends in class either. Most likely, she had been mocked by little cliques since she was young, which was why she had become so introverted and socially anxious. But at that moment, Ethan suddenly felt like he had discovered a hidden treasure. Most importantly, this adorable future Silicon Valley billionaire was still someone no one knew how to cherish. Then from now on, he would be the one to protect her. After that, Ethan slowed down and ran beside Mia on the outer lane of the track. Sure enough, Mia showed a self-conscious expression, lowering her head and saying nothing as she kept running forward. Ethan asked beside her, "What do you want to drink? Gatorade or bottled water? I'll get it from the vending machine for you. Also, you really don't need to care about those mean girls jokes." Only then did Mia carefully raise her head. It was obvious she was still timid and insecure as she asked shyly while running, You're not laughing at me?" Before long, everyone had finished running. Ethan, Mia, and Olivia sat by the bleachers to rest. Ethan then smiled slowly and asked, "Are you two playing volleyball later?" Both girls shook their heads and said quietly, "We'll just sit here for a while." However, while the three of them rested by the bleachers, everyone around them was stunned by Ethan's behavior. Clearly, Mia and Olivia were both the type of students labeled as nerds. They were not ugly at all. They simply did not know how to dress up and did not have the outgoing charm of the cheerleader girls. Harper suddenly walked over and smiled. "Why don't we invite them over to play together?" Then Harper invited Mia and Olivia to join her little group for volleyball. Ethan used that time to repost his novel on Creekwood's forum and update another new chapter. As he was writing, Ethan suddenly looked up and saw Mia and Olivia both walking toward the school building hallway with dark expressions. Mia had even taken off her glasses and was wiping tears as she walked. Ethan immediately chased after them, ready to ask what had happened, only to see Mia glance at him with a flushed face and with tears welling up in her eyes. Then, she said nothing and ran straight toward the girls' restroom. Olivia bit her lip awkwardly and chased after her, then turned back and shouted at Ethan, "It's all your fault." Completely confused, Ethan caught up and grabbed Olivia. "Explain it clearly. Why is she crying?" Olivia sighed, then glanced toward the group of girls at the volleyball court. "They saw you buying water from the vending machine earlier. Just now, they were talking about it by the net. I only explained that the water wasn't for me, but for Mia. Then, they all started teasing her. They said a straight-A guy like you, actually chasing Mia, meant your taste was terrible and weird. They called it Beauty and the Beast." The corner of Ethan's mouth twitched as he asked in disbelief, "Who said that? Who said Beauty and the Beast? They called me the Beast?" Olivia bit her lip and said quietly, "They said you were Beauty." Ethan was so angry he almost laughed. "Who said it? Tell me the name." Olivia whispered. Harper said she didn't expect Ethan to have such terrible taste, and then Madison called it Beauty and the Beast. "Anyway, you head upstairs first. I'll go find Madison and make her apologize." With that, Ethan walked straight toward those cheerleaders by the volleyball court. Seeing Ethan walking over, Harper and the girls seemed to guess that he was coming to demand an explanation. Harper laughed awkwardly. Sorry, we were just joking around, and it seems we made Mia cry." Ethan took a deep breath, his expression completely serious. "Apologize, but I figure you guys won't be able to swallow your pride and do it to her face. So you and Madison can write an apology card and slip it into her locker." Harper froze for a moment. "I have to write one too?" Then she argued with a hint of jealousy. "I don't want to. Why should I?" Ethan glared at her and snapped. "I said go apologize. Do you really need me to start cursing?" Harper was startled and she froze completely. Even the boys playing ball in the distance stared in shock. No one expected Ethan, who usually seemed pretty easygoing, to suddenly lose his temper like that. Harper had been spoiled since she was young. After Ethan yelled at her, her eyes instantly turned red as she sat down on the grass, crying while wiping her tears. Seeing this, the boys in PE immediately became restless. Quarterback Jackson saw what happened, threw down the football, and ran over. "Harper, why are you crying? Did this new jerk do something to you?" Harper shook her head while crying, then stood up and said, "What does it have to do with you?" Finally, she glared at Ethan and ran off. The corner of Jackson's mouth twitched. Feeling like he had lost face in front of the girl he liked, he pointed at Ethan and shouted viciously, "Don't leave after school. Parking lot." That afternoon, the atmosphere in class became extremely strange. Everyone was whispering, especially during the final study hall before dismissal. At that moment, Olivia passed Mia a note. I heard Ethan made Harper cry. Jackson said he's going to get people to block him outside school after dismissal. When Mia saw the line, she nervously bit her lip, then glanced at Ethan beside her and whispered, You should look at this." Mia's eyes were full of worry as she bit her lip and said quietly, "I'm sorry. Should we go to the principal's office and tell a teacher?" Ethan frowned and replied, "No. If we tell a teacher, you'll definitely get dragged into this too. I don't want you caught up in this mess." In reality, Ethan could already imagine what would happen once he, Harper, Mia, and Jackson were called into the dean's office together. Even if the issue appeared to be resolved on the surface, the person who would end up being gossiped about and targeted would still be Mia. But the problem was that the gossip around school would only get more and more exaggerated. In his previous life at Oak Ridge, Ethan had already experienced that firsthand. Online abuse and school rumors could truly break someone mentally, and Mia was already socially anxious to begin with. Ethan would never push her into the eye of the storm. Mia, his adorable seatmate, looked at him with hurt and fear in her eyes. In the end, she picked up a pen, wrote a few words on a sticky note, and passed it over. "I'll go apologize to Jackson." Ethan rolled his eyes at her, then wrote back on the paper, "Don't go. I have a plan." In truth, the simplest and most direct way to deal with this kind of after-school bully ambush was to crush them with overwhelming force, make them realize they had messed with the wrong person, and force them to back off. Then, the corner of Ethan's mouth lifted slightly as he passed another note over. "Do you have money? Send me some on Venmo. I'll put together enough to hire a few people." But no one expected that 2 minutes later, a transfer notification popped up on Ethan's phone. Ethan stared at the number on the screen in disbelief. Hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands. There were actually $42,675. Ethan was completely stunned. Was this what a top-tier Silicon Valley rich kid looked like? A senior in high school had that much money in her allowance account? Mia passed over another note. "Is it enough? If not, I can pull a little more from my mom's trust fund." Ethan quickly replied, "Enough, enough." Then he could not help holding his head in disbelief and laughing. After that, Ethan searched through his Snapchat friends list. In the end, he realized it would be better to contact his buddy Sam from Oak Ridge directly. "Someone's planning to jump me after school. Talk to that cousin of yours who hangs around the auto shop and get some people. Creekwood, side gate block after dismissal. $50 per person just for showing up, and if things actually get physical, another $150 each." Sam instantly sent a confused meme. "What the hell? What's going on? Bro, are Creekwood people really that wild?" Then Ethan transferred $5,000 through Cash App. Sam immediately messaged back, "Holy crap, $5,000? Are you trying to build a private army to invade Afghanistan?" After sorting things out with Sam, the corner of Ethan's mouth lifted slightly as he subconsciously looked toward Jackson in the distance. Jackson was also glaring at him viciously. Soon, the dismissal bell rang. Quite a few students instinctively turned to look at Ethan, who was sitting in the back row. Even Harper, the class peer tutor, could not help walking over, looking conflicted. She pulled Ethan to the hallway behind the classroom and whispered, "Maybe you should hide in the library for now and not go out." Jackson called some guys from off campus. "They're waiting for you on the street outside the school parking lot." Harper shook her head with worry all over her face. "I'm sorry. I told him earlier it wasn't your fault, but he insists on causing trouble for you. Maybe you should just swallow your pride and apologize to him. Last semester, a freshman offended him and ended up in the hospital." Ethan looked at her with amusement. "What's this? Are you worried about me? Don't you still have cheer practice today? Just remember to properly apologize to Mia tonight." After saying that, Ethan casually slung his backpack over his shoulder and walked out of the classroom with ridiculous confidence. Seeing that she could not persuade Ethan, Harper could only turn back and plead with Mia. "I'm sorry. I really didn't know things would turn out like this. Can you please try to stop him? Tell him not to go to that street by the side gate. Otherwise, those people might actually beat him to death." Harper crouched beside Mia's desk, fear written all over her face as she begged for help. But Mia shook her head and answered seriously, "I trust him." Harper was so anxious she was about to cry. This isn't about trust. Ethan can't fight that many jocks and street thugs by himself. Jackson called a lot of people from outside school. "I admit it, I had a big mouth earlier. I shouldn't have mocked you like that. I was jealous because he was taking your side, okay? But I really don't want to see Ethan get beaten half to death. Aren't you close to him? Go stop him." Mia hesitated for a moment, but in the end, she still shook her head and said quietly, "Actually, he also hired bodyguards." Hearing that, Harper became both anxious and angry. She held her head and muttered in a near breakdown, "Oh my God, what do we do? This is gonna blow up." Harper gritted her teeth and prepared to go report it to the vice principal's office. But Mia suddenly gathered her courage and spoke. You can't go. He said we absolutely can't tell the teachers. At that moment, Mia's eyes were unusually firm. If this had happened in the past, she would have had no idea how to handle a bullying incident like this, and would only have run away in fear. But right now, she felt that she should trust Ethan completely. If they told the teachers now, everything Ethan had set up would be wasted. Harper anxiously explained, "Are you crazy? If a group fight really happens and this gets big, Ethan might get expelled again right after transferring here." Mia took a deep breath, but her tone was surprisingly calm. "That's exactly why we have to trust him. We absolutely can't tell the teachers." Harper's mouth parted slightly as she stared at Mia in disbelief. This was the same girl who usually did not even dare speak loudly. And in this instant, Harper felt like everything was so unreal, it was almost like a dream. At that moment, outside Creekwood's side gate, the tree-lined street already felt strangely tense. A few classmates nearby whispered among themselves, "Hey, Ethan, aren't you scared to walk out right now? I heard the other side is that street gang Jackson always hangs around with." Ethan immediately smiled. "Jackson? No idea. Didn't he just go to the coach's office to get the training schedule?" Then he deliberately looked surprised. "Trying to create an alibi?" Liam burst out laughing. "Your brain really works fast. Ha ha ha, no wonder you're a top student from Oak Ridge. But seriously, man, just swallow your pride and back down. You're all classmates. There's no need to make things this ugly. How about it? I can help you ask Jackson's guys to go easy on you." Ethan kept one hand in the pocket of his hoodie and said nothing more. He simply walked straight toward the street outside the school. Soon, he saw several beat-up pickup trucks and modified Harley motorcycles parked by the road near the school gate. 7 or 8 men in leather jackets, looking like street thugs, were standing outside, smoking. Liam patted Ethan on the shoulder and gave a bitter smile. "I'm out, bro. Take care. Good luck." Sure enough, the moment Liam left, the smoking thugs locked their eyes on Ethan like hungry wolves. They exchanged smiles, and then a white young man with a nose ring and dyed blonde hair walked toward him. "Hey you, get over here." The students leaving school nearby were all startled and quickly sped up, moving away for fear of getting caught up in it. No one dared get close to Ethan. The blonde guy blew out a smoke ring and arrogantly patted Ethan on the shoulder. "You're Ethan, that arrogant transfer student from senior class D, right?" Ethan raised an eyebrow slightly and looked over the group. He realized they were basically neighborhood punks who probably have not even finished high school. They were only a few years older than him, riding broken-down second-hand motorcycles and playing gangster outside of high school. Ethan could not help laughing. He pressed his lips together and said, "Yeah, that's me. So you're the guys Jackson paid to jump me?" The blonde youth sneered and shook his head, looking at Ethan like he was a dead man walking. "Come on, let's go to the alley. We've got some private business to talk about." To be honest, if a sheltered honor student ran into something like this, they really might freeze in fear. Especially with these guys' dyed hair, tattooed arms, dirty mouths, and cheap cigarettes. Ethan even noticed 2 of them pulling baseball bats and crowbars out of a pickup's trunk. It did look intimidating, but for a reborn man who had already died once, and his mental toughness had been forged into steel, the whole scene felt almost childish. Ethan gave a mocking laugh and deliberately provoked them. "Is this all you brought? Just a few random nobodies? I thought Jackson spent serious money and called in somebody important." The blonde guy was instantly angered. He turned and laughed mockingly. "Tank, did you hear that? This bookworm with a death wish thinks we don't have enough people?" A thug built like a bear sneered from the side. "Who the hell do you think you are, acting like some tough guy out here? For a scrawny kid like you, the few of us are more than enough to crush you." As soon as he finished speaking, Sam's cousin walked over from the convenience store at the street corner, muttering, "Is it over there? Move, move." The next second, a huge group of bikers and auto shop guys came pouring over from the neighborhood parking lot, surrounding Ethan and those thugs in a massive wave. The students with backpacks nearby, and even the parents who had driven SUVs to pick up their kids, were all stunned. They quickly pulled their children behind their cars. Even the security guard at the school gate was dumbfounded. With trembling hands, he pulled out his walkie-talkie and started calling school leadership for backup. The white thugs Jackson had called over were instantly stunned. The leader scratched his head. "Mick, seriously? For these little high school kids who barely even hit puberty, you had to bring this many guys with gear? I thought some gang was coming to start trouble with a setup this big. Turns out it's just a few clueless brats playing ambush outside a school." Mick had seen Ethan's Instagram photo before. He immediately put out his cigarette and smiled. "You're Ethan, right? These are the losers they sent to deal with you." Sam had also sent Ethan a photo of his cousin Mick before. Ethan shrugged and replied, "I didn't expect them to be this pathetic either. I thought there would at least be a dozen or 20 people. The rich quarterback who hired them to beat me is creating an alibi by getting a playbook from the coach, so he isn't here. handle it however you want. Anyway, both sides are people from outside school. If the cops come, just say it was a random street conflict. Nick smiled. All right, bro, you head home first. Then he waved his hand, and his men immediately surrounded the thugs. Who the hell told you to act wild on the street? Move, move. Don't block the school gate. Come with us to the back alley by the dumpsters, and let's have a proper talk. Then, dozens of muscular men grabbed those thugs like ragdolls and dragged them into the alley for some physical education. At that moment, Creekwood High's disciplinary dean, Dean Lewis, rushed to the school gate with a flashlight, only to find the street corner already empty. What happened? Didn't a parent call and say there was a gang fight outside the school? The school security guard swallowed. Yes, just now. It looked like one of our students was surrounded by some thugs. I was about to hit the alarm and check what was going on. Then, suddenly, a huge group of tough guys rushed out from the roadside and dragged those thugs away like trash. I think they went toward the street on the left. Dean Lewis drew in a cold breath and asked urgently, "Did any of our students get hurt?" The security guard shook his head. "I don't think so." The student later walked away with his backpack, completely unharmed. Hearing that, Dean Lewis finally let out a massive sigh of relief. He immediately sent an urgent notice in the school faculty Slack channel. "Attention all Creekwood teachers. A group of delinquents gathered and fought on the side street outside the school gate. Please ask whether any students in your classes know anything. Confirm whether any students were involved or injured. If so, report to me immediately." Right away, Creekwood's guidance teachers began sending emails and Canvas messages to the class reps, asking about the situation. That evening during study hall, Senior Class D's private Discord group completely exploded. Someone had secretly taken a photo from inside a car of Ethan being stopped and challenged by the blonde thug. Then came a burst of video clips showing dozens of muscular men rushing out from behind, surrounding the thugs, and scaring them so badly their legs merely gave out. That was actually insane. I thought Ethan was dead for sure. Who would have thought he was the real boss? He straight up called dozens of grown men from the streets to clear the scene. All the students were gossiping like crazy on their phones, and their fear and respect for Ethan instantly shot through the roof. Before this, everyone had thought school bully Jackson was impressive. After all, back in junior year, he had brought people to the parking lot to beat up a student from another school. But who could have imagined that this straight-A transfer student from Oak Ridge had even stronger connections outside school? Harper sighed, wrote a note and tossed it to Jackson in the back row. After Jackson unfolded the note and read the live update written on it, he was so angry that he slammed his thick AP history textbook onto the floor. That night, during study hall, Jackson was called to the teacher's office for disrupting class, put in detention, and ordered to write an apology essay. Meanwhile, among the students studying in the library, someone suddenly shouted in the group chat, "Check Reddit. That viral Oak Ridge serial rebels dropout has been moved by the original author to our Creekwood forum section." Huh. This author account looks really familiar. In the pinned post, he said he was forced to transfer from Oak Ridge to Creekwood, so from now on, he'll update exclusively on our turf. In an instant, a large group of girls following the story became excited. Olivia widened her eyes in disbelief, turned to look at Mia in the back row, and asked quietly, "That genius author? He said he transferred from Oak Ridge, so doesn't that mean?" As she spoke, she subconsciously glanced at the temporarily empty seat beside Mia. She thought Mia would be shocked, but unexpectedly, Mia only nodded with unusual calm. Olivia drew in a sharp breath and blurted out, "OMG, it really is Ethan?" As soon as those words came out, everyone in the study hall instinctively looked over, and the whole room instantly exploded. It really was Ethan? Oh my god, wasn't the serial from the other school supposed to be written by some literary genius? It makes sense. He's the only one who recently transferred from Oak Ridge. Harper walked over, a complex look in her eyes as she smiled. Then it's definitely him. Harper and Mia's gazes met in the air, as if silently confirming some invisible battle intent. Right then, Madison suddenly ran to Harper in a panic and whispered, "Harper, what do we do? Should we hurry up and apologize to Mia? Even a bully like Jackson got crushed by the people Ethan called. What if Ethan casually sends someone to deal with us too?" Harper sighed. "He's not that low, but you should still hurry up and apologize. Write a sincere apology card." Madison immediately nodded like crazy, quickly pulled out a piece of pink stationery, uncapped a highlighter, and started writing her apology. The moment the study hall bell rang, Madison walked up to Mia like she was walking on eggshells and stammered, "Sorry, Mia. During PE today, I shouldn't have said something that mean." After saying that, she quickly handed over the apology letter. Harper also walked over. This time she had none of her usual spoiled attitude. With a serious expression, she said, "Me too. I'm sorry for being jealous. But Mia, I've made up my mind." Hearing that, Madison froze, and Mia also raised her head in a daze, her eyes behind her glasses full of confusion. Harper brushed her blonde hair back, gathered her courage, and smiled. It's fair game now. Let's see who can ask Ethan out to a movie first. Olivia's jaw nearly dropped as she stood there stunned, watching the school beauty declare war over a die against the nerdy girl. Mia was completely dumbfounded. She had never dared hope that a dazzling boy like Ethan would truly like her, and for a moment, she felt a dizzying sugar rush of unreal sweetness. The next day, Ethan drove his second-hand Honda Civic back to school. The moment he walked down the tree-lined path on campus, he had already become the absolute center of attention. Students in the hallway moved aside for him, whispering among themselves while glancing at him with awe, yet no one dared come up and greet him. When Ethan carried his tray into the cafeteria, he happened to run into Liam, who had slipped away early yesterday. Liam immediately swallowed awkwardly and stammered, "Ethan, man, sorry about yesterday. I'm really not with Jackson and those jocks, I swear. I tried to stop him yesterday, but you know he's crazy." Liam had already heard that the bikers Jackson paid for yesterday not only failed to drag Ethan into an alley, but got taught a brutal lesson by actual street guys instead. Ethan laughed. "Bro, you weren't this righteous when you ran away yesterday." After that, Liam kept following him around like a little follower, calling him boss, and constantly praising how amazing his novel was. Boss? That abyssal beast metaphor in your book, is it supposed to represent some real-life serial killer? Or maybe a Cthulhu monster? Ethan thought to himself that this guy was also a wildly imaginative, edgy geek. It was just some random Marvel Universe meets Wasteland style setting. He could not be bothered to explain. After lunch, Ethan returned to the classroom and was instantly surrounded by his classmates. He simply admitted it openly. Yeah, fine, I'll come clean. That serial novel really was written by me." As he spoke, Ethan smiled, parted the crowd, and returned to his seat. The moment he sat down, he was surprised to find a still warm Starbucks bacon, egg, and cheese breakfast sandwich and an iced caramel macchiato sitting on his desk. Ethan poked Olivia in front of him with his pen. "Who put this here?" Olivia glanced at the empty back row seat and clicked her tongue. "Who else? Our cheer captain Harper. She went through the drive-thru this morning just to buy it for you." At that moment, Mia happened to return to the classroom as well, carrying a paper bag and several AP textbooks. As soon as she sat down, Ethan directly pushed the Starbucks sandwich and coffee in front of her. Then he took the homemade toast and yogurt from her paper bag and swapped them over with a smile. "Let's trade flavors." Mia frowned and asked quietly, "Why trade?" Ethan explained with a serious face. "Because I want to eat what you brought. Yours looks better." Mia froze for a moment. She did not really understand why high-calorie Starbucks could not compare to a few slices of dry toast, but she still obediently said, "Oh, breakfast was breakfast anyway." And she was not picky. "And don't waste this coffee. Here, take a sip." As he spoke, Ethan personally handed the straw to Mia's lips. Mia looked at him strangely. Then her train of thought took a sudden turn as she asked in realization, "Are you planning not to pay me back?" After a rigorous logical deduction by her genius science brain, she reached the only possible conclusion. This new seatmate wanted to swallow the tens of thousands of dollars she had lent him. Otherwise, why would he be acting so nice so early in the morning? Ethan merely spat out the yogurt he had just drunk and finally laughed. "Mia, in your eyes, am I some kind of romance scammer? I admit I'm not exactly an innocent good guy, but even if I scam someone, I wouldn't scam you, my favorite little billionaire. Don't worry, I'll pay back that money. Just not now. I need to use it to generate some interest first." Mia protested pitifully in a low voice. "That was my trust fund dividend and this month's allowance. It was all in there." Ethan thought for a moment and said, "How about this? For the next while, I'll pay for all your lunches, snacks, and coffee at school. Deal? When the time comes, I'll pay you back with principal and interest, plus the highest Wall Street annual return standard." Mia frowned and muttered, "Really? Then link your Apple Pay to my secondary card." Ethan replied, "I'll set up a shared allowance for you through Apple Cash on iMessage and give you some spending money too. Is $3,000 a month enough?" Mia quickly shook her head. "That's too much. $600 is enough for me to eat and buy books." Ethan rolled his eyes and said domineeringly, "No, you must spend at least $1,000 a month. If you don't spend it all, you fail at the end of the month. You're an undercover billionaire, but you're way too frugal. A girl has to learn how to treat herself." After saying that, Ethan took her phone and, through Apple Cash family sharing, set a mandatory monthly spending allowance of $1,000 for her. Mia said dazedly, "Oh," then pushed up her glasses. "Then, I'll try hard to spend it. At that moment, Ethan was truly about to be completely amused by this pure little rich girl who had absolutely no concept of money. When the class bell rang, Ms. Bennett called Ethan and quarterback Jackson out into the hallway. All the other students sat in their seats pretending to read, while secretly gossiping with the corners of their eyes. In the hallway outside the classroom, Ms. Bennett stood there with a stern face, arms crossed. "Gentlemen, I assume both of you know why I called you out here." Ethan grinned shamelessly. "Ms. Bennett, I swear I didn't fight. Yesterday was my cousin's birthday. If you don't believe me, ask Jackson. Jackson and I are basically brothers from another mother. How could we possibly fight?" Jackson stood beside him, completely dumbfounded. His mind was practically screaming. "Brothers from another mother? Are you insane? The people you called yesterday nearly wrecked my guys." Ms. Bennett looked at Jackson suspiciously and lifted her chin. "Jackson? You tell me," she said. Jackson opened his mouth and froze for a long moment, like his brain had short-circuited. But after remembering Ethan's ridiculous street connections from yesterday, he could only nod stiffly and give a thumbs up. Jackson opened his mouth and froze for a long moment, like his brain had short-circuited. But after remembering Ethan's ridiculous street connections from yesterday, he could only nod stiffly and give a thumbs up. "All right, since your bond is that deep, should I arrange for the two of you to sit together when I change seats next week?" As soon as she said that, Ethan and Jackson reacted like they had been shocked and rejected it in perfect unison. "Hell no." Ms. Bennett shook her head helplessly. "Aren't you supposed to be best friends? Why don't you want me to create an opportunity for you?" Ethan smiled shamelessly. "Mainly because our brotherly bond might affect Creekwood's college acceptance rate. If we really sat together, we'd probably spend the whole class talking football strategy." Ms. Bennett looked Ethan up and down and saw that even his clothes were not wrinkled. He really did not look like someone who had been beaten up. As for Jackson, there was even less to say. She had heard he had hidden in the AP Calculus teacher's office after school yesterday to avoid trouble, and only dared go home after grinding through an entire practice set, so he definitely had not been beaten either. "Fine. Since no one bled, I won't report this to Dean Lewis or your parents for now. But Ethan, and you too, Jackson. If I hear even one more rumor about either of you forming groups or causing conflicts inside or outside school, even if it involves people from outside campus, you won't need to explain it to me. You can go straight to the disciplinary office and let Dean Lewis suspend you. Understood?" Ethan saluted with a smile. "Crystal clear, Ms. Bennett. By the way, Ms. Bennett, please make sure to count me in for that state speech and debate tournament you mentioned." Ms. Bennett took a deep breath and waved impatiently at Jackson. "You go back inside and get ready for class." After Jackson slipped away, Ms. Bennett pulled Ethan aside and lowered her voice. "Ethan, tell me the truth. Does Jackson usually lead the bullying against you in class? Did he threaten you yesterday and force you not to tell the teachers about the ambush outside school?" Then Ethan went into full BS mode, reporting what happened at the school gate yesterday, like he was narrating a Hollywood gangster movie, somehow turning himself into a peace envoy who solved violence with wisdom. After hearing his absurd story, Ms. Bennett was stunned, the corner of her mouth twitching. "And this is what you call brotherhood?" Before returning to class, Ethan did not forget to thoughtfully coach his teacher on how to answer school leadership. "Ms. Bennett, if Dean Lewis asks, just keep the story consistent. Say those bikers happened to pass by the school gate and were delivering a birthday surprise for my distant cousin." Ms. Bennett had been full of anger, but Ethan's completely ridiculous excuse made her laugh despite herself. Ethan casually added a compliment. "Ms. Bennett, you really don't need to keep such a serious face all the time. When you smile, you honestly look like Anne Hathaway." Ms. Bennett, who had only graduated a couple of years ago, was no match for this American-style straight boy charm offensive. Her ears turned red, and she lightly kicked at him. She laughed and scolded him. "Get out of here. Go back to your seat and read your book. You never take anything seriously." Clearly, Ethan's social tricks had successfully won the teacher over, and she did not continue reporting the matter upward. Back in the classroom, Ms. Bennett stood at the podium, clapped her hands, and said, "Guys, tomorrow is the quad school mock exams. This afternoon, I'll hand out the admission tickets for the cross-school test centers. Keep them safe and don't show up tomorrow not knowing where to go. Also, regarding the speech and debate tournament selection, only 3 people from our class have signed up so far, so we can skip the tryouts. Ethan, Harper, and Olivia, the 3 of you can go to the library after school and start researching your debate topics. Also, next month's holiday talent showcase requires each class to submit at least 2 performances. Anyone interested should register with the event coordinator." Meanwhile, inside an Oak Ridge classroom, everything was boiling over. "Did you hear? That legendary novel that stopped updating on our anonymous board has moved to Creekwood's forum. Apparently, the original author is the transfer student who just went there. I asked a buddy at Creekwood on Snapchat. He said senior year only got one transfer student this semester. Holy shit, don't tell me it was really Ethan, the guy they forced out. Suddenly, the heated gossip stopped dead. Vice Principal Harris was standing at the back door of the classroom with a dark expression. After hearing the explosive topic they were discussing, he frowned tightly and demanded, "Can someone tell me who moved our school network's pause novel to Creekwood?" The Oak Ridge students were instantly stunned, looking at one another without daring to make a sound. Vice Principal Harris snapped with a dark face, "Where is your class president?" At that moment, Oak Ridge's class president stood up nervously and smiled awkwardly. "Vice Principal Harris, I really don't know. We haven't even figured out who was behind that alt account." Vice Principal Harris asked in surprise. "You don't know? Then why did Mr. Davis swear to me earlier that the original author was a top student from your class?" As soon as he said that, the whole class erupted. Someone finally could not hold back and exclaimed, "Oh my god, don't tell me it really was Ethan." The class president scratched his head and analyzed carefully. "Sir, the author already revealed part of his identity in the pinned Creekwood post. He said he had just transferred from Oak Ridge. If it really was someone from our class, then other than Ethan, who just withdrew, there can't be anyone else." Vice Principal Harris's brain instantly short-circuited. "Wait, what?" Davis personally told me 2 days ago that he had found the student suspected of plagiarism and had a talk with him. He said the post was taken down so it wouldn't affect the students' Ivy League applications. The students all shook their heads, saying they had never heard anything like that. Clearly Mr. Davis had told a massive lie. Just then, Sam, who had been sitting in the corner, suddenly stood up. Since things had already reached this point, he decided to just lay it all out. "Vice Principal Harris, stop guessing. Ethan wrote it. A couple days ago, I heard the district superintendent praised that novel during the inspection, so I asked Mr. Davis what was going on. He immediately got furious, warned the whole class not to mention it again, and forcibly locked down the news." Vice Principal Harris's face instantly darkened like a thundercloud. Gritting his teeth, he said, "Very well, I understand. Continue your study hall." With that, he stormed out and slammed the door behind him. The moment the vice principal's footsteps faded, senior class A exploded like a powder keg. A huge crowd immediately surrounded Sam. "Bro, so the genius was right beside us this whole time? It really was Ethan who wrote that masterpiece?" At that moment, guidance counselor Mr. Davis was sitting comfortably in his private office, casually organizing student application materials. Suddenly, with a loud bang, Vice Principal Harris pushed the door open with a dark expression. The other teachers in the shared office area all looked up in surprise. Standing at the doorway and suppressing the rage about to erupt, Harris said coldly, "Mr. Davis, the counselor for senior class A, get out here." The two of them then went to a corner of the hallway to talk privately. The moment Mr. Davis heard the news, his face changed. What? You're saying the novel that was blocked at Oak Ridge has been revived on Creekwood's forum?" Mr. Davis trembled all over as cold sweat instantly soaked the back of his shirt. He cursed inwardly. He had thought that if the webmaster blocked Ethan's IP, the kid would no longer be able to update. Who would have thought that bastard would simply jump platforms and continue serializing on Creekwood's forum? Vice Principal Harris grabbed him by the tie and interrogated him harshly. "You liar. Didn't you report to me at first that it was plagiarism by a student from our school, and that you pressured him to stop updating for his own good? Then why does your whole class know that the literary genius is Ethan, the student you personally forced to withdraw?" Mr. Davis's face went deathly pale as he stammered awkwardly, Vice Principal Harris, please let me explain. I was actually..." Harris completely exploded and pointed straight at his nose. "Davis, don't treat me like an idiot. This is personal retaliation. You were afraid of taking responsibility, so you didn't dare admit that the masterpiece praised by the state education department was written by the troublemaker who had just argued with you in your office and got forced out by you, right? What exactly are you so guilty about? Even if he wrote it, so what? Don't you understand the meaning of keeping top talent in-house? All you had to do was keep him here and offered a simple apology. Now the original author took all that traffic and ran to our rival school. How am I supposed to explain this to Principal Sterling? Yesterday, I looked like a clown and even wrote an email to the district superintendent, confidently claiming the child had temporarily paused the serial to prepare for the SAT. Now the whole world knows he transferred schools. In a few days, inspectors from the state education department are going to Creekwood to evaluate their campus culture development. Do you have any idea how sensitive the timing is? Oak Ridge, Creekwood, and St. Jude Prep are fighting tooth and nail for this year's Blue Ribbon honor. If our rival uses this supercultural IP to make a case for themselves, we'll be completely humiliated in front of the school board. I don't care what method you use. Contact that kid immediately and make him delete every chapter from Creekwood's forum. Or else, get on your knees and beg him to return to Oak Ridge's column and continue updating here. Mr. Davis's mouth dropped open in shock, and he stood there completely stunned. Vice Principal Harris delivered his final warning with an extremely cold expression. Davis, if I remember correctly, you're applying for tenure review this year, aren't you? If your idiotic stunt turns Oak Ridge into the laughingstock of the entire district, you should understand that I won't just block your review. I'll have you fired outright. While public opinion hasn't fully exploded yet, go clean up this mess. Now, either make him update under Oak Ridge's name again, or make him stop updating everywhere. Otherwise, once the inspectors discover that a student we drove away is shining at the school next door, it will be a massive slap in the face. You would have been better off lying from the start and saying it was written by an outsourced ghostwriter. Mr. Davis gritted his teeth and lowered his head in humiliation. Vice Principal Harris, this was my mistake. Don't worry, even if I have to throw away all my pride, I won't let Oak Ridge lose this reputational asset. Only then did Vice Principal Harris snort coldly and nod in satisfaction. He straightened the hem of his suit and turned to leave. Before third period began, Mr. Davis walked into the classroom extremely unnaturally and coughed twice to hide his embarrassment. Before class starts, I need to ask something. Among everyone here, who is usually closest to Ethan? The students below immediately exchanged knowing glances. Finally, Sam held back a laugh and raised his hand. Mr. Davis, I'm pretty close with him. We're basically bros. A few girls who loved watching drama whispered below. Didn't Chloe used to hang around him every day? Mr. Davis looked as if he had grabbed a life-saving rope, and his eyes instantly lit up. Right, Chloe? Weren't you the closest to him before? Do me a favor privately. Test the waters with him on Snapchat. Ask why his genius serial suddenly stopped updating on our school server. Try to persuade him to transfer first publication rights back to the Oak Ridge community. Don't let him go boost their reputation on that third-rate platform. Chloe's face looked terrible and she hesitated with extreme guilt. But sir, he's already officially enrolled at Creekwood now. Isn't it only natural for him to post on their school forum? Why should he bring the story back to the school that just expelled him? Mr. Davis forced a smile. Just play the emotional card. Just say his old classmates really miss his writing. Aren't you two still friends? Do me this favor. He's writing online anyway, so what difference does it make where he posts? Meanwhile, far away at Creekwood High, Ethan was sitting in AP Literature, slacking off while drafting an outline. His phone suddenly buzzed. Sam had sent him a disappearing Snapchat message. LMAO, massive drama. That old fox Harris stormed into class today, asking about your novel. Davis got cornered so badly that he's now desperately trying to send Chloe to beg you, hoping to trick you back into updating on Oak Ridge's domain. Ethan replied, mockingly. Hilarious. I already blocked that scheming girl on Instagram and iMessage yesterday. Sam sent a few laughing emojis. No wonder Chloe looked like she'd bitten into a lemon just now. She kept stammering and probably didn't dare admit in front of everyone that you already kicked her out of your life. That's karma right there. Sure enough, less than 5 minutes later, a notification popped up on Ethan's lock screen. Chloe sent you a follow request on Instagram. Ethan did not even think about it and mercilessly hit decline. In a great mood, Ethan deliberately turned to his adorable seatmate Mia, who was struggling with a physics problem, and teased, Mia, don't forget you're taking me to AMC this weekend to watch the latest Marvel movie. Mia raised her head, pushed up her glasses pitifully, and explained, but you already know, don't you? My secondary card is tied to your account now. I don't have any cash left. Ethan almost collapsed onto the desk from laughing. She was ridiculously cute. Fine, my treat. I'll swipe your secondary card to take you. Happy now? Mia stubbornly shook her head. No, that's different. Didn't you just set a $1,000 spending limit for me? I said I would use that money to take you. Mia froze for a moment, and her strange thought process seemed to twist itself into a knot. It wasn't until class had been going on for more than 10 minutes that Mia suddenly raised her head from a set of complicated formulas and muttered to herself, wait a minute. If I use the limit you gave me, then that money is basically still yours. That doesn't count as me treating you unless I use my own trust fund account to buy the popcorn. Ethan could not hold it in anymore. He buried his face on the desk and laughed so hard his shoulders shook. This logical little billionaire was fatally adorable. Hey Ethan, what exactly is making you so happy? At that moment, AP chemistry teacher Mr. White, standing at the podium, could not help tapping the blackboard and calling him out in front of the class. Ethan suddenly realized he was still in class, immediately stood up, and forced back a laugh as he made something up. Sorry sir, I just suddenly understood one of the ultimate mysteries of the universe, so I felt happy. Mia's face instantly turned red all the way to her ears. Of course she knew Ethan was laughing at her delayed reaction to the money logic, so she immediately buried her head behind a thick chemistry dictionary like an ostrich. Ethan continued with a straight face. Here's what happened, Mr. White. I was just working on a chemistry element deduction problem. I wrote down element B, boron, on my scratch paper. Then I added an A, then two Na symbols, sodium. In the end, it spelled banana. So I started wondering whether I had accidentally cracked some world-changing fruit alchemy. As soon as he finished, the whole class burst into laughter, loud enough to shake the ceiling. Even the usually stiff chemistry teacher, Mr. White, could not help twitching at the corner of his mouth. He pushed up his glasses and warned helplessly, Mr. Comedian, save that kind of dry humor for the stand-up club. For now, please use your intelligence on my molar masses. Finally, lunchtime arrived. As soon as the bell rang, Cheer Captain Harper rushed to Ethan's desk, burning with curiosity. Tell me the truth. Did you brutally reject that scheming Chloe's follow request again? Ethan paused for a moment, then immediately understood. What? Did Chloe cry to you on Instagram? Harper clicked her tongue with obvious delight. Ethan, you really are savage. She DM'd me begging me to connect you two, saying she had urgent official business to discuss with you, and asking you to at least accept her friend request. Ethan packed his backpack and answered coldly, tell her my friend list is full and I don't have time for her. Let's go, Mia. I'll take you to try today's cafeteria mystery meat tacos. Mia obediently said, oh, and followed right on his heels with perfect understanding. Harper stood there, stunned. As someone used to being the center of attention, this was the first time in her life that she had put herself out there and been ignored so naturally. Her friend Madison walked over, patted her shoulder, and said with a sour smile, let's go, stop looking. Maybe geniuses just have unusual taste. Maybe he's into that nerdy type. At that moment, Ethan was standing in the long cafeteria line, bored out of his mind as he debated whether to choose pasta or pizza today. Suddenly, he felt an intense gaze. When he turned his head, he found Mia staring at him through her thick lenses, her big doe eyes fixed on him without blinking. Ethan felt slightly unnerved and touched his face. What's wrong? No meme girls bullied you today, right? He looked helplessly at Olivia behind them and asked for backup. What's gotten into her? Olivia held back a laugh and shrugged. Suddenly, Mia seemed to gather a huge amount of courage and asked cautiously, Ethan, that rumored ex-girlfriend from Oak Ridge, who kept bothering you, does she look especially like a Hollywood star? Ethan burst out laughing and flicked her forehead. Huh? What exactly is going on in that little head of yours? Where is this jealousy coming from? Mia covered her forehead, bit her lip, and stubbornly said nothing. Her eyes held a hint of grievance, like a little cat guarding its food, as she stared straight at Ethan. After that, the three of them carried their trays to a quiet booth by the window and started eating while chatting. By the way, are you going to perform at next month's holiday talent showcase? Mia sipped her juice and could not help looking at Ethan curiously. Ethan poked at the salad on his plate with a fork, stayed silent for a few seconds, then smiled mysteriously. Depends on my mood. I could go up and casually win best stage presence, or I could sit quietly in the audience, like a normal spectator. Suddenly, Olivia, sitting across from them, leaned in mysteriously and revealed, Ethan, I'll tell you a huge secret. Don't let Mia's quiet act fool you. She won first place at last year's district-wide arts festival talent competition. Hearing that, Ethan actually raised an eyebrow in surprise. Mia instantly blushed and kicked Olivia under the table, desperately shaking her head to stop her from exposing more. But Olivia laughed carelessly. Why are you embarrassed? That was your absolute highlight moment. You need to learn how to flex your talents. After that, Olivia spilled all the beans, revealing that Mia was actually a classical piano prodigy with top-tier skills. After lunch, under the two girls' persistent persuasion, Ethan finally changed his mind with a smile. Fine, since we have a god-tier performer on our side, I'll reluctantly volunteer and join for fun. Cut back to Oak Ridge High. Chloe, who had run into walls everywhere, arrived at the guidance counselor's office, looking defeated. Mr. Davis, I tried my best, but Ethan already blocked all my social accounts. Every request I sent disappeared into the void. You created this mess, so you should be the one to fix it. Maybe you should personally call him and give him an international-level apology. Mr. Davis angrily took off his glasses. Are you kidding me? You two are the same age. Surely you have more common language with him than a rigid old man like me, right? Didn't he used to be the ultimate simp who was willing to take punishment for you? Chloe's face turned red from both shame and anger as she said quietly, Mr. Davis, people change. That was all in the past. He doesn't fall for my act anymore. Mr. Davis was panicking like crazy. Throwing away all teacherly dignity, he actually began teaching Chloe how to play soft. Listen to me. High school boys fall for this kind of thing. Their pride is strong, but they're easily swayed. Lower yourself, cry a little, act cute, send a few nice photos. This will probably work. Invite him to a fancy Michelin-level French dinner. Put it under school club activity funds, and I'll personally reimburse the bill. After all, Ethan being forced to withdraw, the source of that mess was indeed that I handled it a little too hastily and harshly. Chloe completely refused this time, and argued back sharply, her voice full of grievance. Since you know you were the one who made the mistake, why can't you act like a man, openly call his number, admit your fault, and say sorry yourself? That sentence hit Mr. Davis right where it hurt. He choked on his words, his mouth opening for a long time, without managing to squeeze out a single rebuttal. Chloe suddenly seemed to see through his pitiful vanity, so she dropped the act and went in for the kill. Mr. Davis, don't tell me you're afraid of losing your precious dignity in front of an underage student you drove away. Mr. Davis looked like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. His face instantly darkened and he slapped the desk in embarrassment and rage. Nonsense. Get back to class right now and stop pointing fingers at me. As if granted amnesty, Chloe rolled her eyes and immediately replied, "Fine, you're the one telling me to leave." However, the moment his final card stepped out of the office, Mr. Davis regretted it instantly. He desperately grabbed at the little hair he had left. Now I'm completely finished, damn it. Gritting his back teeth, he pulled up Ethan's saved contact information from the school system. Looking at that familiar phone number, his thumb felt too heavy to move, unable to press the green call button. His vanity, greater than the sky itself, ultimately won. After hesitating again and again, he could only place his hope on Ethan's former seatmate, Sam. A few minutes later, Sam was summoned into the gloomy office, hands in his pockets, standing there casually. Mr. Davis forced out a friendly smile that looked worse than crying. "Sam, I remember you and Ethan used to be tight as thieves, right? You must play games together on Discord all the time, don't you? Help your teacher out a little. Use that brotherhood of yours to privately persuade him. Tell him not to keep giving daily active traffic to our competitor, Creekwood, alright? Ask him to return to the Oak Ridge Forum and continue serializing here. Taking a step back, if that really won't work, then have him wait until after next year's college apps before writing again." Mr. Davis rubbed his hands and laughed in a self-righteous way. As a teacher, I'm mainly worried that this kind of distraction will hurt his GPA and damage his chances of pushing for the Ivy League. Sam had already seen through everything, but he deliberately pretended not to understand and asked directly, "Mr. Davis, weren't you the one who signed his withdrawal papers and drove him away? Why are you suddenly so concerned about the grades of a student from another school? Besides, if writing affects studying, wouldn't posting on Oak Ridge still use his brain?" Mr. Davis was left speechless and could only clear his throat awkwardly. Ahem. Literary creation at our school is called developing extracurricular soft power. At their school, it's called wasting time. How can those be the same? Cut the nonsense. Give me a straight answer. Will you help or not? Sam held back his laughter and deliberately dragged out his tone. "Teacher, it's not like I can't pass along a message for you. But..." Mr. Davis, like a drowning man grabbing driftwood, urgently asked, "But what? As long as the condition is reasonable, name it." Sam put on an Oscar-worthy performance and scratched his head with a troubled look. "A while back, I bought limited edition sneakers, and I still owe him some money. If I go to him now and shamelessly tell him what to do, I really can't open my mouth." Hearing that it was a problem money could solve, Mr. Davis immediately waved his hand generously and smiled. "I thought it was something serious. Friendships built with money are the most reliable. How much do you owe him? I'll personally sponsor this public relations fee for you." Sam widened his eyes, putting on a look of unbelievable surprise. "Holy shit, you can really reimburse it?" Mr. Davis gritted his teeth and rapidly calculated the cost in his head. If this matter failed, Oak Ridge's reputation would collapse, and his crucial tenure review would absolutely be suspended indefinitely by the vice principal. Between two evils, spending money to avoid disaster was the smarter deal. So, he forced himself to act as if money meant nothing to him. "Of course, consider it your errand fee from me. Tell me how much." Sam touched the tip of his nose and named an outrageous price. "Actually not much. I owe him $400 for in-game currency top-ups." Mr. Davis felt his heart bleed when he heard that number, but he still swallowed the pain. "Deal. I'll transfer the $400 to you right now. I'm paying you to deliver results. You must explain the stakes clearly to Ethan. Ideally, persuade him to wait until after receiving his college offers next year before restarting the serial. Bring him my exact words. Although he is no longer an Oak Ridge student, as his former mentor, I am still deeply concerned that his obsession with online writing will ruin his great chance of entering the Ivy League." Sam forcefully suppressed the corners of his mouth from rising and pretended to be noble after taking advantage. "Teacher, if I take the money, I'll definitely try. But you know Ethan's stubborn personality. I can't guarantee I'll be able to persuade him 100%. Maybe you should take the money back. I don't want to owe you this favor. Seeing his prey about to run, Mr. Davis immediately panicked. He pulled out his phone, opened the transfer page, and smiled desperately. Cut the nonsense. Open your Venmo QR code. This money is a strategic investment. You don't need to pay it back. As long as you use the same debate skills you had back then to deal with him, even if you only get him to pause temporarily, this money is yours. Sam was overjoyed. Teacher, I really don't have to work later to pay you back? Mr. Davis forced back the pain in his heart and squeezed out a smile. Absolutely not. You have my word. Sam fought to hide his grin at the payment notification on his phone and put on a tragic expression. All right, I'll put my mech on the line and give it a try. Seeing that the massive $400 had safely landed in his pocket, Sam instantly changed his attitude. Boss, generous as always. I'll head back to the front line and gather intelligence. Once I get Ethan's exact response, I'll report to you immediately. The moment Sam stepped out of that dangerous office, he immediately bombarded Ethan with messages from the hallway. Ha 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 ha. Holy crap. We hit the jackpot today. Bro, you might not believe this, but old Davis, that massive cheapskate, actually paid me $400 out of his own pocket as hush money just to convince you to stop writing. It seemed this self-important guidance counselor had truly been pushed to the brink. Ethan looked at his stone screen, the corner of his mouth curving into a mocking smile. Since his former school was so sincerely throwing money at the problem, he decided he absolutely had to grind out another 20,000 words tonight and celebrate properly for his dear old teacher. That night, after returning to his bedroom, all the top seniors in the district were staying up late and grinding practice tests for tomorrow's joint mock exam. Ethan, however, opened his MacBook and started researching how to register a cross-border dropshipping independent store through Shopify. His reborn foresight told him that in just a few years, with TikTok and Instagram Reels becoming fully mainstream, social e-commerce and short video product selling would bring a wealth tsunami that would overturn the global retail landscape. Setting up an independent store now meant he had already missed the earliest wave of easy money, but he could still bite firmly into the second wave of profit. At the very least, before the online shopping boom completely crushed traditional offline retail, Ethan had to plant his own flag in that commercial territory. As for the core starter product, Ethan had no intention of building some capital-heavy, long-term brand that required too much effort for too little return. To quickly gather his first $1 million cash flow within a few months, he locked onto an extremely vertical niche that old traditional brands had ignored, using social media hype to sell sticky push-up Nubra products that created an instant lifted look. However, Ethan was still a high school student, so he had to keep this low-key. Fortunately, he had just turned 18 last month and already had an SSN, which meant he met the legal age requirement to register an online store. Suddenly, Sam sent him an iMessage. WTF, Ethan? Did you get hacked? Ethan replied, ha ha ha, no. I'm planning to build an independent store and sell this thing. Sam immediately responded, no, you definitely got hacked. After all, in Sam's mind, Ethan was a hardcore straight guy in the truest sense, and an AP Science top student on top of that. No matter how Sam thought about it, he could not connect Ethan with sticky push-up Nubra products. The craziest part was that Ethan was actually saying he wanted to sell them. The main issue was that Ethan really did not have many especially close brothers right now, so he simply sent the product photos over and asked Sam to help choose the initial stock from a straight guy's perspective. It was not until 10:30 at night that Ethan finally finished adjusting the sample landing page on Shopify and uploaded all the product photos. After that, he worked through one AP practice paper before finally turning off the lights and falling asleep. Early the next morning, Ethan arrived at the classroom. Before long, the proctor walked in holding the sealed exam papers. Liam suddenly smiled at Ethan. By the way, Ethan, bro, how are you at AP English, you know, ELA? Ethan casually replied, pretty decent. If nothing goes wrong, I should be first in the school. Liam immediately gave him a thumbs up and laughed. Sick. But as soon as he finished speaking, a familiar sarcastic voice suddenly rang out. First in the school? Just don't let me catch you cheating. Ethan looked up and froze. Today's proctor was actually Dean Miller from Oak Ridge. Only then did Ethan remember that the quad school mock exams used cross-school proctoring among the 4 schools. Dean Miller said coldly, all right, put away all textbooks and review materials. If I catch anyone with cheat sheets, copying from an Apple Watch, or engaging in any kind of cheating, I will tear up your exam paper on the spot. I don't know what Creekwood's rules are, but at Oak Ridge, cheating goes straight into your disciplinary record, and your parents get notified. After saying that, Dean Miller did not forget to shoot Ethan a vicious glance. After receiving the answer sheet and exam paper, Ethan immediately began writing. In the blink of an eye, more than an hour passed. Ethan smiled faintly and raised his hand. "Sir, may I turn in my paper early and leave?" He glanced at the classroom clock. There were still a full 45 minutes before the exam ended, and there was no point sitting there any longer. Dean Miller sneered. "Too early. Everyone remember this. You are not allowed to turn in your paper during the final 30 minutes of the AT mock exam." In the end, Ethan still timed it perfectly and turned in his paper exactly at the 30-minute mark. Dean Miller collected the paper, then used the chance to pull Ethan aside into the hallway for a private talk. He frowned and asked, "That serialized novel on Oak Ridge's forum, you wrote it? I never heard you had that kind of writing talent. Why didn't you ever show it before?" Ethan smiled faintly. "Dean Miller, I heard the district superintendent praised me too. Please remember to tell the administration that I'm a Creekwood student now." Dean Miller's face immediately darkened. "The superintendent praises you a few times and now it's going to your head, huh? Let me tell you, a high school student's priority right now is maintaining GPA and pushing for the Ivy League. Messing around with all this random nonsense every day is a complete waste of time." Ethan replied slowly. Right. Everything you said is correct, Dean Miller. If there's nothing else, I'll be leaving now. I still need to go back and write 2 more chapters. Maybe the district superintendent is waiting for my update." Dean Miller was so angry that his temples throbbed. Ethan's words were practically hitting him right where it hurt. Watching Ethan whistle as he walked away, Dean Miller immediately took out his phone and sent Mr. Davis from Oak Ridge an iMessage. "I'm losing my mind over the student you drove away. He writes some stupid novel and thinks he's amazing. Hurry up and figure out a way to deal with this." Mr. Davis quickly replied, "Dean Miller, I've thought about it. Since he refuses to delete the posts, why don't we simply hold a grand literary writing competition on campus? Oak Ridge has so many award-winning students. There's no way we can't find someone who writes better than him, right? Once a more popular work appears, won't this problem naturally solve itself?" Dean Miller's eyes lit up. That was actually a pretty good crisis management plan. He decided he would suggest it to Principal Sterling later. To be fair, Oak Ridge's administrative efficiency was indeed high. Right after the ELA exam ended, homeroom teachers from each class had already sent out the competition notice. Submissions would be posted in the form of online fiction, and gold, silver, and bronze awards would be selected. The principal would personally present the medals at an assembly, and outstanding works could be included in the school yearbook and library collection. Since the event covered grades 9 through 12, and there were credits involved, quite a few students responded enthusiastically. Many opened columns on the school forum and started writing. Several talented students immediately began cranking out their own stories. "I heard Oak Ridge is holding some kind of literary showdown." At that moment, Olivia, who was eating in the cafeteria, froze slightly and instinctively looked at Ethan, sitting beside Mia. Ethan smiled too. "I heard about it as well. Ha ha ha, that's actually interesting." After that, the group chatted for a while about the upcoming exam subjects. Ethan said, "You guys can prepare in advance for a synthesis essay on climate change and environmental governance. I feel like there's a high chance it'll come up. California news has been mentioning environmental issues a lot lately, along with things like carbon footprints." Olivia could not help praising him. "Wow, you're really impressive. No wonder you're a top student. Do all Oak Ridge students predict exam topics this accurately?" Mia quietly ate her salad while pulling out her phone and writing the point down in her notes app. Ethan laughed in amusement. "I'm just better at predicting these things. I can't speak for everyone else. By the way, Mia, you promised to take me to the movies this weekend. Don't flake on me tomorrow." After returning to class, Olivia looked at Ethan with the excitement of someone seeing Prophet in person. The girls beside her also started calling out, "He's here, Ethan's here." The English essay really was about environmental issues. "I can't believe you predicted it exactly." Ethan smiled modestly. "Just lucky." At that moment, Mia also returned to the classroom, happily telling Olivia that her English essay had gone incredibly smoothly. Right then, AP Literature teacher Ms. Bennett returned to the classroom as well. Standing at the podium, she smiled and said, "I won't assign extra reading worksheets this weekend. Also, I have an announcement. I don't know if you've heard, but Oak Ridge is making a big show of holding a literary writing competition." As soon as she said that, many students in class deliberately turned around and looked meaningfully at Ethan in the back row. Ms. Bennett continued, "Our school won't blindly follow them into this so-called literary showdown. We have our own pace. With a little over 100 days left before college applications are due, the school plans to promote study groups, 4 students per group. We'll try to place 4 students who are strong in different AP subjects together, so everyone can help one another and teach the subject they're best at to the other members." Right then, Ethan raised his hand and said, "Ms. Bennett, I actually have an idea. Fixed 4-person study groups are already being used in many public schools, but the results usually aren't that great. I suggest we modify that rigid model. We can turn it into an open peer tutoring system with flexible group sizes, where students give mini lectures, and whoever finds a topic useful can choose to attend. That way, everyone can maximize their own strengths. Teaching others also reinforces what they know, and students with weak subjects can choose the best mini tutor in the entire class for that subject, instead of being limited to their own 4-person group. As soon as he said that, many students nodded in agreement. No wonder he's a top-tier student. He hit the nail on the head. When school let out on Friday, the whole campus was filled with laughter and chatter. Clearly, everyone was in a great mood because the weekend had arrived. But what surprised Ethan next was that the undercover billionaire, Mia, actually carried her backpack and took public transit home. No wonder everyone was stunned at the alumni reunion after graduation. Back in high school, no one had any idea that Mia's family had such a massive trust fund in Silicon Valley. In the blink of an eye, Saturday morning arrived. Ethan and Mia had agreed to meet at Westfield Mall at 2 in the afternoon. For this first date, Ethan had actually prepared quite well. He bought 2 iced boba teas and even picked out a delicate Swarovski bracelet as a gift. A little while later, Ethan saw a familiar figure appear in the distance. Mia was wearing a very feminine, white floral sundress. She was also carrying a low-key white crossbody bag. At about 5'4", paired with a pair of low-wedge sandals, she looked especially elegant. Although she was wearing no makeup, hadn't learned the heavy makeup style typical of American high school girls, it still wore those bulky black-framed glasses. It was already obvious that she had serious beauty potential. This was Ethan's first time seeing her without an oversized hoodie. After Mia walked closer, she asked shyly in a small voice, "Do I look nice?" As she asked, she nervously pinched a strap of her bag. Ethan burst out laughing softly. "You look absolutely gorgeous. Here's your boba, no ice, and this is your gift." Mia quickly shook her head, overwhelmed by the attention, but Ethan firmly placed the delicate jewelry box into her hand, not taking no for an answer, and smiled. "Open it and take a look. If you don't like it, we can exchange it at the store with the receipt." Only then did Mia carefully open the box. The moment she saw the sparkling crystal inside, she froze completely. Ethan smiled naturally. "Well, want me to put it on for you?" Mia stood there in a daze, and before she could even react, the cool, glittering bracelet was already wrapped around her slender wrist. After that, Ethan naturally took Mia's hand and led her into the air-conditioned mall. This was clearly the first time in Mia's life that she had held hands with a boy. She reacted like she'd been jolted, shyly trying to pull away by instinct. But in the end, Ethan held her hand firmly. She could only blush, lower her head, and obediently follow behind him as he led her forward. The two of them made their way up to the AMC theater on the top floor of the mall. Since it was the weekend, there were quite a lot of high school students lining up in the theater lobby. Ethan said, "Wait here for a second. I'll pick up the tickets. Also, do you want some buttered popcorn?" The moment he asked, Ethan realized the question was pointless. Mia was already staring straight at the huge bucket of popcorn in a passing child's hands, secretly swallowing. But right then, a familiar voice suddenly rang out. "Ethan?" His buddy from Oak Ridge, Sam, shouted excitedly. "Why are you here watching a movie too?" Ethan turned around and saw Sam standing in line behind him, with 2 other boys from Oak Ridge. After chatting briefly, Ethan carried the popcorn and an iced Fanta back to Mia and smiled. "Let's go. Time to scan the tickets and head in. I just ran into some guys I knew from Oak Ridge." As soon as he said that, Mia instantly froze in fear. Like an ostrich, she shyly buried her head, afraid that students from another school would stare at her like she was some zoo exhibit. Seeing her adorable dazed reaction, Ethan almost laughed out loud. Honestly, although Mia still did not really know how to dress herself up, she looked definitely pretty without makeup. She was simply unpopular in Creekwood's social hierarchy because of her extremely introverted and socially anxious personality. At that moment, when Sam and the others saw Ethan holding a girl's hand, they immediately started teasing him like crazy from behind. One mischievous guy even secretly took a candid photo of their backs on Snapchat and posted it in the Oak Ridge senior year group chat. The Oak Ridge group instantly exploded. Ethan really is a player. Wasn't he completely obsessed with Chloe before? How did he transfer schools and instantly move on to a girl from another school? Suddenly, someone directly tagged Chloe with a brutally painful message. "Chloe, he used to be your #1 protector. But the second he transferred, he immediately moved on." Chloe stared at the screen, so angry her lungs nearly exploded. But she did not reply in the group. Instead, she gritted her teeth and forwarded the candid photo to Creekwood cheer captain Harper. "Oh my god, do you know where this photo was taken? A boy from our class ran into them at the Westfield Theater. Honestly, that girl is basically one of those bottom-tier weirdos at Creekwood, right? Everyone treats her like she's invisible. I can't believe Ethan is that smart and still fell for some nerd like her. After that, Harper talked non-stop on the phone and told Chloe every piece of gossip about Ethan and Mia at Creekwood, hitting Chloe right where it hurt. At that moment, Ethan and Mia were already sitting in a dim couple's seat in the back corner of the theater. Taking advantage of the noise before the movie started, Ethan leaned close to her ear and whispered, "Be honest. Is this your first time watching a movie with a boy?" Mia nodded dazedly in the dark, then grabbed a handful of popcorn and stuffed it into her mouth, mumbling unclearly, "The popcorn here is really good." Ethan was genuinely amused by her complete lack of romantic awareness and pure foodie instincts. "Why didn't you socialize much at school before? Was it because no one asked you out? Or because your family has strict parents and wouldn't let you go out?" Mia hesitated for a moment, then puffed her cheeks and mouthed firmly, "They don't let me." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "So today, you snuck out?" Mia nodded frantically, then nervously made a shh gesture at Ethan to keep it secret. Ethan asked again, "Then do you have to go home for dinner tonight?" Mia froze for a second, then nodded as if it were obvious. Suddenly, as if she had thought of some terrible scene from an American drama, she became alert. She crossed her hands protectively in front of her chest and stared at Ethan like he was some kind of creep. Ethan burst out laughing. "What are you thinking, you overthinker? I'm asking whether you want to eat at the mall before going home, or if you have to go back hungry and eat with your parents. I'm not asking whether you want to come home with me overnight." Only then did Mia realize she had overimagined things. Her ears instantly burned with embarrassment, and she wanted nothing more than to crawl into a crack in the floor. All she could do was quietly say, Ethan found her unbearably adorable, but honestly, this was also good. At least she was cautious and knew how to protect herself. When she entered the shark tank of college later, she wouldn't be so easily fooled by fuckboys. By the time the Marvel blockbuster ended, it was already 5:30 in the afternoon. After sending Mia off in her car, Ethan did not immediately go home. Instead, he sent a message to his buddy Sam from Oak Ridge and arranged to meet at an In-N-Out near the mall for dinner. Ethan took a bite of his burger and smiled. "I actually asked you out because I need help with something serious. That cousin of yours who hangs around the streets, is he still working as a gaming lounge admin or managing a few Discord gaming groups?" Sam froze, instantly becoming alert. "Huh? Are we calling people to fight again? What gang did you piss off this time?" Ethan shook his head and laughed. "Relax, it's not a fight. I didn't offend anyone. I want to find a batch of accounts to create some early activity and initial orders for my Shopify store, just to get the cold start going." After that, Ethan only gave Sam a general explanation of the click farming commission model and did not lay out the detailed mechanics. He simply asked Sam to help find reliable people and group resources. In the blink of an eye, the weekend passed. Sam moved surprisingly fast when it came to gray market side work. Through his cousin's channels, he quickly brought in more than 30 part-time students and jobless young people to take orders in the group. Ethan sat in front of his computer from 3 in the afternoon on Sunday, handling store analytics and order records until 7 at night, leaving his whole head dizzy from exhaustion. Ethan was just about to close his laptop and rest for a while when he suddenly noticed that Senior Class D's iMessage group had exploded. Ms. Bennett had sent a long announcement. "Everyone, I'm sorry to inform you that Jackson from our class is going through a family emergency. His grandmother suffered a sudden stroke and was admitted to the ICU, and his father was also involved in a serious car crash last week. His family is currently under heavy pressure from medical bills, and the situation is very difficult." After learning more about the situation, the school hopes everyone can lend a hand through GoFundMe and help Jackson get through this. Next week, Harper and I will visit Jackson's family at the hospital on behalf of the class. Ethan stared at the screen for a moment. That once arrogant quarterback had actually been hit hard by reality. Then an idea suddenly flashed through Ethan's mind, and he smiled. "Give a man a fish, and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, and you feed him for life. High school donations would probably only raise a few $100s at most. That won't even scratch the surface of American hospital bills. But if I bring him in to work for me, he might actually earn real money that can save his family." So Ethan privately messaged Ms. Bennett and asked for Jackson's phone number. After calling Jackson, Ethan first asked about his family's terrible financial situation. Then he briefly walked Jackson through the e-commerce side hustle he had been working on, including the basic model of packaging and shipping products for profit. Once Jackson understood the profit potential, the former bully, who had already been pushed into a dead end by reality, was completely convinced. All his pride collapsed under the pressure, and he was ready on the spot to follow Ethan into the e-commerce business to make the money his family desperately needed. On Monday morning, almost every class was going over last Thursday's joint mock exam papers. At noon, just after Ethan finished lunch in the hallway, someone suddenly tapped him on the shoulder. When he turned around, Creative writing teacher Mr. Anderson was standing at the classroom door with a huge smile. Mr. Anderson said excitedly, "Ethan, the district mock exam results are out. You really are a genius. Creekwood only produced 2 perfect AP essays, and one of them was yours. And your total ELA score ranked 4th in the entire district." Ethan's eyes lit up, and he raised an eyebrow. "That's not bad. But I bragged before that I'd take 1st in the district. Now I only got 4th. So what gives? You're not going to keep stopping me from writing novels in class, are you?" Mr. Anderson smiled mysteriously. "Wait until the overall rankings come out this afternoon, and you'll see for yourself. Also, that novel you're serializing on the forum, is it 100% original? No plagiarism from any published work, right?" Ethan nodded seriously. Mr. Anderson smiled. "Good, they just wanted to confirm just in case. Because tomorrow, the State Education Department Superintendent is coming to Creekwood for an inspection. You know how Oak Ridge is making a huge show out of their literary writing competition, right? Our school didn't jump on that bandwagon. But Principal Sterling has decided to use your momentum to officially establish an elite literature club on campus, focused on developing high school students' reading and critical writing skills. The principal wants you to attend tomorrow's open class as a student representative and role model, then share your writing experience with the superintendent. Talk about how you came up with the novel that took the whole district by storm. There's a good chance the administration will sit in for the entire open class. So if you have time tonight, make a keynote deck summarizing the core plot of your novel and include a few strong metaphor passages. That way, your presentation tomorrow will be more convincing." After Ethan returned to the classroom, Olivia looked up curiously and asked, "What did Mr. Anderson want? Did he catch you slacking off and writing a novel in class?" Ethan smiled faintly. "Nothing major. He just leaked a little news early and told me I ranked 4th in ELA." The moment he said that, the surrounding students immediately gathered around excitedly. Someone even revealed that the entire district only had a few perfect score essays in this mock exam, and Ethan had taken one of them. Everyone instantly looked at Ethan with envy and admiration. "By the way, Ethan, have you seen that literary showdown Oak Ridge has been running this week? It's hilarious. They made a school-wide popularity poll on their forum, and guess who's currently number 1? Noah." The class clown could not hold back his laughter as he explained, "It's you. More accurately, your Rebels dropout has the highest vote count at their school. You blew everyone else out of the water. The votes from 2nd to 10th place combined aren't even close to yours. Their students are cursing you while voting for you like crazy." Meanwhile, Vice Principal Harris at Oak Ridge High was slamming his desk in the office, so angry that his tie had gone crooked. He roared at Mr. Davis over the phone. "Davis, get online and see what the hell is going on. All our literary top students combined don't have as many votes as that traitor alone. This is absolutely ridiculous." Mr. Davis checked the admin dashboard and stared in disbelief. The 9 top prospects Oak Ridge had been heavily promoting had fewer combined votes than Ethan's old post. Mr. Davis grew so nervous that his words tangled together. No, Vice Principal Harris, please listen. This ranking must have been rigged by bots, and it doesn't matter anyway. Ethan was already withdrawn from our school. He doesn't qualify under our student competition rules. So this ranking can be invalidated directly. It has no reference value." Vice Principal Harris gave a mocking sneer. Davis, are you actually stupid or are you playing dumb? Do the rules even matter right now? Look at the public opinion. Does this look acceptable to you? Immediately right now, I want to see a work that can rival Ethan's novel and take that 1st place spot down legitimately." Mr. Davis took a deep breath, then suddenly had an idea. "Wait, Vice Principal Harris, I just thought of a way to salvage this. Why don't we pay an ELA literature teacher to write something personally, wipe the floor with everyone, and take back 1st place by force? What do you think?" Vice Principal Harris froze for a moment, then looked at him as if he were an idiot. "You want a teacher to use an alt account and compete against students in web fiction?" Mr. Davis gave a dry laugh. "No, I mean, didn't Mr. Smith publish a bestseller before? If he ghostwrites it, there shouldn't be a problem." Vice Principal Harris shook his head. "No, that's academic fraud. A teacher beating students can't be justified." Mr. Davis quickly smiled. "Of course we won't have Mr. Smith sign his own name. We could have him privately coach a student and polish the work one-on-one." Vice Principal Harris waved his hand. "Forget it. There's no need to go that far. I suspect the district superintendent already knows the kid transferred. After all, he wrote it himself in the post. Just delete that voting ranking, then issue a formal statement saying the competition is only open to currently enrolled Oak Ridge students." Cut back to the Creekwood classroom. Tied for 1st in class, tied for 3rd in the grade. No wonder he's a top student from Oak Ridge. He shows up and immediately ranks near the top. Everyone looked at Ethan with envy. Ms. Bennett held the score sheets and said, "These are your ELA score reports. Teachers for each subject will bring your other scores during class. But as your homeroom teacher, I do have a surprise to announce first. The district's #1 ELA single subject score is in our class. As soon as she said that, the whole class became excited, and Olivia deliberately turned back to glance at Ethan. Ethan waved his hand. It's not me, I'm 4th. But in the next second, Ms. Bennett smiled and said, It is you, Ethan. Instantly, every student turned to look at him. Didn't he just say he was 4th? A few students who had heard Ethan earlier whispered below. Ms. Bennett asked in surprise, Who said he was 4th? One student laughed and replied, Mr. Anderson passed by earlier and seemed to say he was 4th. Ms. Bennett immediately corrected it. He meant 4th overall. Ethan's ELA single subject score is #1 in the entire district. As soon as she said that, thunderous applause erupted throughout the classroom. Even Mia looked at Ethan with eyes full of admiration. Ethan rubbed his nose and smiled. Just lucky. It was not like he could say he had already practiced this AP material countless times back in college during his previous life. Ms. Bennett smiled. All right, when your literature teacher comes later, he'll go over Ethan's perfect score essay with you. Meanwhile, over at Oak Ridge, the literature teacher was also handing back exam papers. The moment students got their papers, they started whispering, Holy crap, you're amazing. You got an 8 on the synthesis essay. The literature teacher suddenly sighed. I honestly don't even know what to say about this mock exam. I already narrowed down the environmental essay angle for you in advance, and yet so many of you still barely passed. Then the teacher suddenly turned and asked, Sam, how did you do? Sam lowered his head awkwardly. Sir, I didn't do that well. The literature teacher sighed. What a waste. You used to sit next to Ethan too. Hearing that, Sam argued defensively, Ethan's ELA grades weren't good before either. The literature teacher replied calmly, normally, since he transferred, there'd be no need to pay attention anymore. But he really did improve by leaps and bounds. In this quad school mock exam, Ethan ranked 4th in the entire district for overall ELA, and his essay got a perfect score. As soon as he heard that, Sam was stunned. Really? Sir, I remember Ethan used to barely pass assigned novel readings. Did he suddenly unlock cheat codes after going to Creekwood? The literature teacher rolled his eyes and smiled. Maybe he's working much harder at Creekwood than he ever did here. Sam didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Working hard my ass. That guy was goofing off in group chats every day, building an independent store to sell sticky push-up new bra products, and going on movie dates with sweet girls from another school. How did that look like studying hard? When the final bell rang, Ethan stood by the stairwell and saw the score ranking sheet posted on the hallway bulletin board. Olivia and Mia stood beside him and exclaimed, Wow, that's amazing. 1st in the district for ELA, 3rd in the grade for AP Calculus, 3rd in the grade for AP Physics. Only the other 2 AP Science subjects are a little weaker, but your overall GPA is still 10th in the grade. Olivia said with some regret, If you pulled up those 2 STEM scores a little more, it would be perfect. Ethan's weak point in his previous life had been classical literature, while his strengths had always been STEM and calculus. But AP Chemistry and Biology required memorizing a lot of complex formulas and details. After graduating from college in his previous life, Ethan had long since left most of that knowledge behind. So getting this score after barely reviewing since his rebirth was already pretty good. Meanwhile, his reading, writing, and calculus scores were far beyond what he had achieved before. Mia pointed at her own ranking, then gently tugged at Ethan's sleeve, signaling for him to look. Mia was ranked 41st in the grade. She pointed her slender finger at her nearly perfect AP Science scores, then looked at Ethan with a hint of pride, like a kitten showing off its catch and waiting for praise. Ethan smiled faintly. Hey, not bad at all. As he spoke, he instinctively pinched Mia's small nose. If you pull up your weaker subjects, don't go to Berkeley for college. Go to Juilliard. That way, if we both study on the East Coast, we won't be too far apart. Olivia asked in surprise from the side. You want to study on the East Coast? Which Ivy League school are you aiming for? Ethan answered as if it were obvious. Harvard or MIT, of course. Hearing that, Mia asked dazedly, How did you know I was planning to apply to Berkeley? With the memories from his previous life, Ethan clearly remembered that Mia had indeed gone to that top-tier music school later on. Although Berkeley was also one of the best arts colleges in the country, Ethan had returned with future knowledge, so his target was naturally the very top tier of the Ivy League. Whether it was the alumni network, the investment circles, or future access to startup funding, they were on completely different levels. Besides, Ethan's strongest card right now was using high scores and a strong profile to enter a prestigious university. Once he got into college, his high school prestige would quickly lose its advantage. During those college years, he could use his foresight about Silicon Valley's future to get into venture capital and entrepreneurship ahead of time. If he missed the next wave of opportunity, climbing the social ladder would become countless times harder. So, for Ethan, every single day right now was a race to build his future wealth. Originally, writing novels and selling the rights was the most reliable side hustle. After all, Ethan knew what kinds of major IPs would become popular later. But memory alone might not be enough to perfectly recreate a million-word classic masterpiece. And right at this moment, Mia had basically become his angel investor with her trust fund money. Ethan realized that cross-border e-commerce was absolutely the fastest cash cow shortcut. The next morning, Ethan had just arrived at school when he received a call from his literature teacher, Mr. Anderson, asking him to come to the office and prepare for the afternoon lecture. Ethan hurried back to the classroom. As soon as he put down his backpack, he was surprised to find a fancy pancake breakfast sitting on his desk. At that moment, Cheer Captain Harper ran over with a bright smile. "I bought it for you. Why haven't you eaten it yet?" Then she deliberately leaned close to Ethan's ear and teased with a smile, "Sticky push-up new bra, huh?" After saying that, she burst out laughing and swayed back to her seat. It turned out that Harper had accidentally seen Jackson's snap yesterday, where he was moving cardboard boxes and sending UPS packages. Out of curiosity, she had messaged him and pressed him for answers. Only then did she find out that Ethan, the supposed nerd, was secretly doing e-commerce and had even recruited the former varsity bully to work for him. Ethan was amused and warned her in a low voice, "Keep it a secret. Don't go broadcasting it everywhere." Harper happily pushed the breakfast toward Ethan and said in a sweet, flirtatious voice, "Then eat what I bought you. Don't swap it with Mia again. Otherwise I'll tell everyone in the locker room your business secret." Ethan frowned slightly and teased, "Are you threatening me?" Harper replied in a coaxing voice, "I just want you to accept the gesture and eat the breakfast I bought you. I know you deliberately gave the Starbucks to Mia last time, and I know you two went to Westfield for a movie on Saturday. What does she have that I don't? Why can't you give me a chance to ask you out?" Harper had always liked this kind of geeky top student who was on a completely different level. Especially after the quad school mock exams, her crush on Ethan was fully solidified. Although Ethan had once chased her middle school classmate Chloe, Harper did not really care. High school girls' friendships were pretty fake anyway. Besides, Chloe herself had admitted that she only kept Ethan around as a backup and never truly dated him. Not to mention, the two of them had already blocked each other across every platform. What Harper truly could not accept was this. She was the recognized cheer captain, with a figure and looks far above that nerdy girl. And she was already being this forward. So why was she losing out to a nearsighted girl who spent all day with her head buried in homework? Ethan immediately shut down her fantasy. "Sure, block Chloe right in front of me, then get into Stanford by finals. If you can actually pull that off, I'll consider letting you take a number for a date with me." In the blink of an eye, the first period bell rang, and the AP physics teacher walked into the classroom. "You should all have checked your scores in the system by now. Take out your papers. Also, where's Ethan?" Ethan raised his hand. "Right here, sir." The physics teacher snorted. "Were you messing with me on purpose? You scored that high in ELA and calculus, but when it came to my physics free response questions, you lost points because you didn't show your work?" After saying that, the physics teacher put the exam under the projector and started going over it. He had that efficient, Silicon Valley-style geek energy written all over him. By second period, several district officials in suits could already be seen inspecting the hallways. At that moment, one of the officials stopped at their classroom door and asked, "The gifted student who transferred from Oak Ridge that you mentioned earlier, is he in this class?" Then Dean Lewis walked over with a smile, gestured to the physics teacher, and called out, "Is Ethan here? Could you step out for a moment?" Ethan stood up, and every pair of eyes in the classroom instantly locked onto him. Everyone stared at him like he was some rare museum exhibit on display. He slowly walked out of the classroom, then nodded politely with quiet confidence. "Good morning, gentlemen." Dean Lewis patted Ethan on the back and said, "Don't be nervous. This is Superintendent Song from the State Education Department, and the gentlemen here are Education Board specialists." Superintendent Song looked Ethan over with a warm smile. "So you're the mysterious author serializing Rebels Dropout on the forum, correct? Sharp writing, very impressive. I heard you just transferred from Oak Ridge, so you should have a fairly direct understanding of both elite schools in this district. Your mock exam results are also outstanding. I heard your transfer was because of that." Dean Lewis quickly smoothed things over and cut in. "Just some friction caused by teenage hot-headedness. The child has a bit of a personality, but his grades are exceptional. He was already one of Oak Ridge's top students before, and after transferring to Creekwood, he made it into the district top 10 in this quad school mock exam." Superintendent Song nodded with a smile. "Violence is certainly not something we encourage. But today, I'm simply asking you in a personal capacity. What do you think is the biggest difference between Oak Ridge and Creekwood in terms of campus culture?" Which school's learning environment do you think is more suitable for cultivating future Ivy League talent? As soon as that question landed, Dean Lewis practically started sweating bullets. The loaded question had come out of nowhere. He looked at Ethan nervously, afraid the boy might suddenly say something rebellious. Ethan paused for a moment, took a deep breath, and answered in an extremely polished Ivy League interview tone. Sir, here's how I see it. Oak Ridge's academic pressure can feel suffocating, but personally, I appreciate Creekwood's inclusiveness more. Dean Lewis immediately let out a breath of relief and flashed a picture-perfect smile, even more standard than a politician's. Superintendent Song asked with interest, "Oh? Could you be more specific? Why do you prefer Creekwood?" Ethan said calmly, "When I studied at Oak Ridge, I often felt that I wasn't willing to explore truth for myself. I was studying for the school's Ivy League acceptance rates, for family prestige, and for the idea that I had to live up to a trust fund. That cutthroat, hyper-competitive culture keeps students mentally tense for long periods of time. It also creates a kind of exhaustion from being held hostage by other people's expectations. For example, when I was at Oak Ridge, my guidance counselor said things like this more than once in meetings. The dean pressured students in the same way too. Don't bring shame to your family. Your only value right now is a 4.0 GPA. Think about how much your parents spend sending you to AP tutoring, and you must get an Ivy League offer to repay them. I believe family responsibility matters, and repaying our parents' sacrifices matters as well. But when that kind of pressure is force-fed to students too heavily, it becomes harmful to teenagers developing a healthy sense of self. It turns studying into something done entirely for other people's expectations. But at Creekwood, the atmosphere feels completely different. At Oak Ridge, even during PE, coaches allowed students to go to the library for self-study. A lot of students hid there and drilled SAT practice papers non-stop. The school turned a blind eye to that kind of competition, even when it sacrificed physical training, which left many students with poor health and weak stamina. At Creekwood, the PE coach makes you actually finish the 1-mile run. After that, whoever wants to play football plays football, and whoever wants to socialize or rest can do that. On the surface, Creekwood doesn't have Oak Ridge's almost obsessive test prep atmosphere. But in reality, it fits a more elite model of learning with work-life balance. In my view, Creekwood's approach to holistic education is completely different from Oak Ridge's. Maybe Oak Ridge has a slight short-term advantage in written test scores, but when it comes to critical thinking, resilience, and well-rounded development, I believe Creekwood alumni may have a much higher ceiling once they graduate and enter society. Gentlemen, I haven't been at Creekwood for very long. This is only my humble opinion based on my own limited experience. After hearing that, the education officials all nodded approvingly. That was remarkably insightful. No wonder the student could write such a reflective novel. His logic is airtight, and his vocabulary for critical analysis is very precise. Superintendent Song half-jokingly said to Dean Lewis, "If we hadn't randomly pulled this student out of the hallway on the spot, I would have thought your school had prepared a public relations speech for him in advance." In just a few sentences, he analyzed the strengths and weaknesses of Oak Ridge and Creekwood with remarkable clarity. Dean Lewis was grinning from ear to ear. There's absolutely no way we rehearsed that ahead of time. Ethan is simply outstanding, and his thinking is much more mature than that of most American high school students. In this mock exam, his essay also received an extremely rare perfect score. His critical expression is very strong. Dean Lewis gave Ethan a firm, approving pat on the shoulder, and his impression of the boy rose several levels again. This kid really knew how to speak. Without making it obvious, he had praised Creekwood's holistic education beautifully, but the praise had sounded objective rather than forced, and he had even ended with "I haven't been here long," making it feel like a third-party due diligence report instead of deliberate flattery. At that moment, another education board specialist pushed up his gold-rimmed glasses and smiled. "By the way, there is one more thing. This year, the state will select one of these elite schools to receive the prestigious title of National Blue Ribbon School. The evaluation criteria naturally include campus inclusiveness, Ivy League acceptance rates, faculty strength, alumni donations, and several other factors. From the outside, Oak Ridge's college placement record seems more aligned with that exemplary title. But if you had a vote, which school would you choose?" Ethan deliberately pretended to struggle with the question. He scratched his head and answered as if deeply conflicted. "Sir, then I can only be honest. Whichever school currently holds my locker is the school I selfishly hope will win. So my vote automatically goes to Creekwood." The officials in suits were immediately amused by his blunt American-style humor. "Ha ha ha, makes sense. Everyone wants their own school to pad their resume." While the atmosphere was extremely pleasant, Ethan seized the moment, gathered his courage, took out his phone and said, "Gentlemen, may I take a selfie with you here in the hallway? Here's the thing, I'll be honest, I want to show off a bit. I want to post an Instagram story and brag to the former classmates who looked down on me that the top decision makers from the state education department actually came to chat with me personally. The education officials were completely amused by his honest and unpretentious flattery. This kid is too interesting. We're just a bunch of old bureaucrats, not Hollywood stars. What's there to show off on social media? Ethan explained with feigned earnestness. But I think in California's education world, becoming a superintendent is way more impressive than being a celebrity. The officials could tell this kid was socially savvy, funny, and knew exactly how to butter them up. Taking a photo would also help show their approachable public image.